A heavy boot strikes the ground with a resounding thud, signaling a sudden and ominous arrival. A young girl with blonde hair and striking red eyes looks up in shock, her face marked with dirt and a look of pure confusion. A mysterious voice demands to know why she is trespassing on his island, cutting through her dazed state. This is the story of an unexpected encounter in a completely different world. In the world of otome games, the term heroine refers to the female protagonist whom players control. The goal is simple: capture the hearts of charming and quirky male characters across diverse genres ranging from school life to high fantasy. However, the path to romance is often blocked by the Villainess, a rival character dedicated to ruining the player's love life. Eri, an obsessed gamer, curses her luck after staying up all night to clear her favorite otome title. Rushing to school and late for class, she reflects on her deep passion for the dramatic world of virtual romance. Despite the exhaustion and dark circles, she feels the triumph of finally capturing the specific character she was aiming for. Tragedy strikes in a heartbeat as the screech of tires and a violent crash bring Eri's life to an abrupt end. Consciousness returns slowly as she wakes up in an unfamiliar place, struggling to understand where she is. Confused and disoriented, she ruffles her hair only to realize with a shock that her strands are now a bright, shimmering blonde. Her bare feet hit the floor as she takes tentative steps toward a mirror, the reality of her situation beginning to sink in. She reaches out to touch the cold glass, her mind racing to process the impossible reflections staring back at her. The mirror reveals a stunningly beautiful young woman, a face that is definitely not the one Eri was born with. She stares in disbelief at her new form, paralyzed by the realization that she has been transported into another body. A panicked scream erupts as she tries to make sense of the date and the sheer impossibility of her rebirth. Desperately hoping it's all just a vivid dream, she tries to wake herself up as she takes in the luxury surrounding her. Her eyes widen as she examines the fine details of her new appearance, searching for any clue to her identity. She gazes around at the extravagant, royal-style bedroom, wondering who could possibly own such a magnificent space. The sound of heavy footsteps approaches as voices frantically call out for Lady Eris, causing her to flinch in fear. The door slams open as a concerned individual bursts in, asking if she is all right after hearing her commotion. Eri points to herself in confusion, questioning if she is truly the Lady Eris they are searching for. The visitor notes her startled expression, joking that she looks like a pigeon that's been shot at. The truth is finally revealed. She has been reincarnated as none other than Eris Witchend. A stern maid pushes her toward the dressing area, reminding her that she is late for school and needs to change immediately. As the door closes, Eri repeats the name Eris Witchend over and over, the name feeling hauntingly familiar. A memory flickers in her mind, reminding her that she only recently heard that name while playing her last game. She looks at the school uniform laid out before her, the realization of her predicament finally hitting home. Eri remembers these clothes vividly. They are the exact same outfits worn by the characters in the game she just cleared. The name Eris Witchend stands out in her mind, associated with the dark and thorny path of a doomed antagonist. She holds the garment in trembling hands, her mind racing through the lore of the game's prestigious academy. Eris Witchend is the daughter of a high-ranking noble family and the flawless fiancée to the kingdom's first prince. Panic sets in as she realizes she hasn't just entered a game, she has become the primary villainess. She trembles with fear, desperately wishing this was a mistake and trying to find a way out of her new identity. Of all the characters to inhabit, she has taken the role of the rival character, who is destined for misery. In the original story, Eris was a malicious woman who delighted in making the heroine's life a living hell. Worst of all, in the first prince's route, Eris's actions lead to a conclusion where her very life is at stake. She gazes at the imposing royal academy, the setting where her destined destruction is supposed to unfold. She knows that if the story continues as planned, a terrible fate awaits her at the end of this path. While the original Eris may have deserved her end, the new Eris is determined to avoid reaping what her predecessor sowed. In the game's bad ending, the Witchend family falls into ruin while Eris is thrown into a cold, dark prison. Determined to survive, she vows to do whatever it takes to avoid that miserable conclusion. She puts on a bright smile, deciding to act completely different from the cold villainess the world expects. Greeting her fellow students with newfound kindness, she begins her mission to change her social standing. Eri resolves to use her 3 years before graduation to become an Eris Witchend that everyone can actually love. She vows to be honest, kind, and to never perform a single mean act against the game's heroine. With a heart full of hope, she aims for a happy end that was never meant for a villainess like her. The dream of a peaceful life is shattered instantly when the prince coldly announces he is annulling their engagement. Stunned by the sudden rejection, she can only utter a confused sound as her carefully laid plans fall apart. The prince walks away without a second glance, leaving her standing alone in the wake of his shocking declaration. Eri stands frozen, unable to process why the story is diverging so violently from what she expected. She slams her hands down in fury, screaming out at the unfairness of being cast aside despite her best efforts. She insists she isn't the mean person everyone thinks she is, feeling trapped by a script she can't control. Fuming with rage, she glares at the situation, wishing the prince had been honest with her from the very start. She realizes the prince is having an affair with a commoner, outraging her sense of justice and noble standing. Cursing her luck, she demands to know what happened to the 3 years of effort she put into being good. She suspects the heroine is actually two-faced, having ensnared the prince while acting as if Eris didn't exist. Reflecting on her progress, she realizes the last 3 years weren't a total waste because her family remains safe. Collapsed in exhaustion, the young lady gasps for air as she struggles to regain her composure. She laments being transported to this new world, finding a bitter peace only after her engagement was abruptly broken. A sudden, heavy clatter erupts from outside the carriage, instantly snapping her out of her deep melancholy. Panicked and confused, she hurls herself against the window as a violent throb of fear pulses through her. Assailants surround the vehicle, screaming for her surrender as she flinches back in absolute terror. The overwhelming pressure of the situation leaves her momentarily breathless and paralyzed. Her eyes widen in shock as the reality of the ambush sets in, her face pale with mounting dread. With a harsh cry of pain, she is dragged from the carriage and falls hard onto the dirt. The attackers loom over her, callously identifying her as a young lady they intend to force into submission. Staring up at the unidentified men, her mind races with a single, frantic question: who are these guys? A rough hand suddenly grabs her, causing her to let out a high-pitched shriek of pure desperation. She kicks and thrashes against her captors, screaming for them to stop as they grow impatient with her resistance. Displaying unexpected ferocity, she snatches a wooden pole and swings it wildly to keep the dangerous men at bay. Watching from a distance, a mysterious observer notes that the attackers are far from mere amateurs. The observer is struck by the woman's resolute spirit as she continues to hold her ground against all odds. An attendant urges a man named Len to move, but he commands them to wait, his eyes fixed on the struggle. Despite reminders of a promise made to his father, Len remains transfixed by the scene unfolding before him. The thugs taunt her, claiming they only want to hurt her a bit, while she prepares for a final stand. A heavy, authoritative boot steps onto the battlefield, signaling the arrival of a powerful new presence. Len Lysidstein strides forward with cold confidence, his imposing figure casting a long shadow over the scene. He demands to know what the intruders are doing on his island, his voice cutting through the chaos. In a blur of motion, Len delivers a devastating strike that sends the attackers flying back in an instant. The young lady gazes up in stunned silence, her eyes shimmering with a mix of relief and disbelief. Len assures his subordinates he is fine before ordering Richard to interrogate the men about their employer. Standing tall with his back to the girl, Len's presence completely dominates the silent, blood-stained field. Overwhelmed by the sudden rescue, she looks up at her savior with a dazed and trembling expression. In a moment of unexpected gentleness, Len leans down toward her as the tension of the battle finally fades. He offers a sincere apology and reassures her that there is nothing left to worry about. Confused and hesitant, she tries to find her words as he begins to walk away from the wreckage. She calls out to him, her voice small as she watches the man who just saved her life. He identifies himself as Len Lysidstein, leaving her to process the weight of his famous name. The sun shines over a grand, opulent estate as the young lady finally returns to safety. Still draped in Len's heavy fur coat, she stands in silence, the weight of the garment a constant reminder of his protection. Her frantic maids rush to meet her, demanding to know if anything happened during her meeting with Anon. She coldly declares that she no longer cares for Anon, shocking her staff with her sudden change of heart. She turns to her maid Lilia and asks if she knows the identity of Len Lysidstein. Lilia reveals that Len is the 4th prince and the younger brother of her former fiancé, Thun. The realization hits her like a physical blow, her eyes widening as she connects the pieces of the puzzle. She dismisses the maid with a quiet, "I see," retreating into her room as Lilia looks on with concern. Exhausted by the annulment and the ambush, she collapses onto her bed, her mind spinning with the day's events. She replays Len's comforting words in her head, unable to shake the image of the fourth prince from her mind. She suddenly gasps, realizing a strange detail about the encounter that she hadn't noticed before. She recalls that in the game she once knew, the fourth prince was only a passing mention and never actually appeared. She clutches the bedsheets, questioning why such a major deviation from the original story is happening. Sitting alone in the dim light of her bedchamber, she contemplates her uncertain future in this unfolding narrative. The scene shifts to a bustling, high-society party filled with the constant chatter of the nobility. She attends the event to maintain appearances, noting how the wary nobles now treat her with cold distance. A sudden hush falls over the crowd as Len Lysedstein enters the room, drawing glares and whispers of the fourth prince. Ignoring the social stigma, she surges through the crowd and grabs Len's sleeve to get his attention. The onlookers gasp in horror at her boldness as Len turns to face the woman who dared to touch him. She offers a formal apology for disturbing him at the party, but Len remains calm and unbothered. With a faint, enigmatic smile, he tells her that no one talks to him anyway, except for her. She stands before him, her heart racing as she prepares to express her long-overdue gratitude. Bowing deeply, she thanks him for saving her life, while he asks if there is something more she needs. Len insists there is no need for thanks and instead apologizes for the attack happening on his territory. He prepares to reveal a dark truth, his tone becoming serious as he addresses the ambush. With a chilling calmness, he reveals that the thugs who attacked her were actually hired by his brother, Anon. She is left utterly speechless, her mind reeling as she asks what could have possibly made the first prince so angry. Len stares at her intensely, wondering what she did to his brother to provoke such a desperate, amateurish assassination plot. She stands frozen as cold sweat drips down her face, realizing she is caught in a much more dangerous game than she thought. Eris stands in a state of emotional collapse, tears streaming down her face as she faces a crushing reality. Despite her desperate efforts to befriend the heroine and change her fate, Eris laments that her role remains fixed as the villainess who loses everything. Surrounded by dark roses, she apologizes repeatedly while acknowledging that suffering is the only role permitted to her in this world. A silver-haired noble watches her with a stoic, unreadable expression as she continues to sob in the shadows. He gently reaches out to touch her face, drawing her closer on the moonlit balcony. In a sudden, breathtaking moment, he pulls her into a firm embrace amidst a flurry of falling petals. Startled by the physical contact, Eris freezes as he asks if her tears have finally stopped falling. Panicked and defensive, she pushes him away and begs him to stop if his only motivation is pity. The noble looks her directly in the eye and firmly declares that his actions are not born of pity. Under the glow of a full moon, he pulls her back in for a sudden and passionate kiss. Eris is left reeling in shock, her heart racing as she realizes she was just kissed by someone she didn't expect. They stand in silence on the balcony, the weight of the moment hanging heavy between them. Breaking the silence, he admits he only came there today because he specifically wanted to meet her. Eris spirals into a frantic panic, wondering why he would want to meet a villainess like her. To her surprise, the man bursts into a genuine laugh at her chaotic reaction. He calls it a coincidence, but Eris feels her heart thumping against her chest in the wake of his smile. He reveals his own identity with a smirk, identifying himself as the notorious noble. The encounter concludes on the balcony, leaving a lingering mystery about their blossoming connection. A close-up of the kiss captures the intensity of the moment that changed everything for Eris. Back in her room, Eris touches her lips in a daze, unable to process the fact that she was actually kissed. She gasps for air, the reality of the situation finally beginning to sink in. Screaming at herself to get it together, she slaps her cheeks to break out of her romantic trance. She wonders what on earth Len was thinking when he took her first kiss. Reflecting on the flow of the moment, she remains stunned by the loss of her first kiss to such a mysterious man. She concludes that Len-san is a truly strange person who defies all her expectations. Lying in bed, she contemplates his reputation and why everyone seemed to avoid the man known as the notorious noble. Her maid Lily bursts into the room, scolding Eris for her unkempt appearance before she gets in trouble with Martha-san. Eris quickly asks Lily if she knows anything about Len Lysedstein, admitting that a lot happened during their meeting. She sits on the edge of her bed with a serious expression, waiting for Lily's insight. Lily takes a stern tone, warning Erisama that she must absolutely stay away from that man. She explains that while the fourth prince has a respectable public reputation, he is plagued by dark rumors. Lily claims he is connected to the mafia and is rumored to eliminate anyone who hinders the royal family. Terrified by the description of a dangerous assassin, Eris promises to be careful and avoid him. Lily tells her to change quickly while the atmosphere shifts to the flowers decorating the room. A single flower stands as a silent witness to the growing tension in the household. Lily mentions that the usual peddler retired, so the flowers in the room today are different than usual. She reveals she picked the flowers from the garden herself to brighten up the lady's room. Eris praises Lily's girl sense, while Lily looks on with a confused but happy expression. Despite the terrifying labels of mafia and assassin, Eris finds it hard to reconcile those rumors with the man she met. She admits to herself that he didn't seem like such a bad person during their encounter. Resolving to find the truth herself, Eris decides there is no point in just sitting around and thinking. The scene shifts to the bustling town where chatter about the fourth prince fills the air. Local citizens whisper that those who oppose the royal family are eliminated by his private forces. A man claims that every night people enter his basement torture room and are carried out in bags the next morning. Frustrated by the lack of any good rumors, Eris is challenged by a local to check the truth for herself. Stunned by the suggestion, she realizes that seeing the truth with her own eyes is the only way. With a determined stride, she marches toward his residence, clutching his coat and trying to convince herself she isn't scared. The Lysedstein residence looms ahead, giving off an ominous aura that makes Eris hesitate. Trembling with what she calls excitement, she prepares to return the coat while bracing for whatever lies inside. A young girl suddenly appears and asks Eris if she would like to buy some flowers. Eris is startled out of her scary face by the girl, who notes how intense she looked. She admires the beautiful flowers the girl raised herself and asks if they are for sale. Just as she agrees to take one, a loud bang echoes through the area. A debt collector arrives, screaming at the girl's family about a repayment deadline while her father is ill. The collector begins to trash the flower cart, ignoring the girl's desperate pleas. He cruelly suggests they sell their land to pay the debt, while Len watches the scene unfold from the shadows. Eris can no longer stay silent and decides it is time to step into the story and intervene. The collector is stunned as the villainous Eris Witchend suddenly makes her presence known. As the man tries to ignore her, Len steps forward and asks if he is interested in an exclusive contract instead. With a cold and intimidating glare, Len repeats that he is taking part in this matter, silencing the collector instantly. Confronting the debt collectors, the noble lady fiercely demands they apologize for trampling a young girl's flowers while declaring she will personally pay off the child's debt. With unwavering resolve, she vows to pay every cent of interest and invites the thugs to her residence to collect the full amount. A brute suddenly charges at her, screaming that he won't be ordered around just because she is a member of the nobility. The aggressor is violently intercepted mid-strike by a powerful, shadowed figure. To the lady's shock, her savior is revealed to be Len, who stands protectively before the two frightened girls. Recovering from the initial chaos, the lady reaffirms her serious intention to settle the girls' financial burden. The debt collector is baffled, questioning why a noble would go to such extreme lengths for a complete stranger. Looking at the girl, the lady explains that she felt the child's deep love for her family and her precious flowers. She reflects on how such beautiful flowers raised in a loving home would surely bring happiness to her own hardworking maid. A quiet moment of realization passes as the weight of her kindness settles over the scene. Len stares back at her with a knowing, silent gaze. Len orders his subordinate, Richard, to handle the remaining details and send the girl to his residence later. Overjoyed and relieved, the young girl presents a bouquet of flowers to her savior as a heartfelt thank you. As the carriage departs, the girl leans out to shout a final thanks to her Oni-chan as well. Len offers a casual wave as he walks away, his back turned to the lady. The noble lady watches him go, her expression softening as she clutches the flowers. Later at the residence, Len sharply questions what she was doing, sniffing around his home looking for rumors. Blushing and caught off guard, she clumsily holds out his expensive coat, claiming she only wanted to return it. Len lets out a smirk, teasing her for making such bold remarks earlier only to fret over a single coat. She realizes he is the same person who consistently supports the flower girl, making her doubt his bad reputation. Trembling, she looks him in the eye and asks point-blank if he is actually a bad person. Len bursts into a fit of laughter at her directness, while she indignantly reminds him he stole her first kiss. She declares with a flushed face that her past experience gives her every right to know exactly who he is. Len turns the tables, asking if she has heard the specific dark rumors following his name. He takes a slow, deliberate step toward her, his presence becoming suddenly overwhelming. Looming over her, he asks if she is simply too sheltered or if she truly possesses nerves of steel to approach him. In a swift motion, he pins her down against a desk, trapping her beneath him. With a dangerous glint in his eyes, he whispers, asking what she would do if the terrible rumors were actually true. She is paralyzed by the memory of him taking her first kiss and the conflicting stories of his character. Despite the fear, she stares back defiantly, stating she doesn't believe he is like other truly evil people. Len sighs, noting that his brother was right about her being far too much trouble to deal with. Suddenly, Len's brother grabs him by the shoulder, loudly demanding to know what he means. Len mockingly critiques his brother's choice of hired thugs, suggesting he should have used better trained men who wouldn't confess. The brother rages that his plan was to have the woman defiled so he would be forced to abandon her. The lady clenches her hands in horror as she listens to the cruel plot against her from the shadows. A sudden, violent slap echoes through the room as Len strikes his brother. With a look of pure cold fury, Len snarls at his brother to never touch the lady again. He looms over his cowering sibling, demanding to know what could possibly make him think such an act was okay. The lady watches the intensity of the confrontation, her heart racing as Len's true protective nature surfaces. Back in the present, she struggles and kicks against Len's advances while he claims he is only doing what he told his brother he'd do. Len gazes at her with a predatory smirk, delivering the chilling line that he is going to ravage her. Terrified and confused, she laments that she was just beginning to think he might be a decent person. She screams internally that he is, in fact, nothing but a bad guy. Despite her pleas for him to wait, Len coldly states that he won't wait any longer. He repeats his threat of ravaging her as she blushes furiously, unable to escape his grasp. She tries to protest that they aren't even dating while he begins to pull at her clothing. With a final, desperate scream, she tells him he absolutely cannot do this. Morning light breaks into a grand bedroom where the lady sits up in bed, gasping for air. She realizes to her absolute mortification that the entire scandalous encounter was just a vivid dream. Panic sets in as she wonders if her subconscious is frustrated or if Len was actually serious about his words. Her maid bursts in without knocking, insisting that she come quickly because of an emergency. The lady is stunned to see the young flower girl from the debt incident standing in her home. She recognizes the child immediately, while the maid asks the girl what she has brought with her. The girl presents a massive delivery of flowers, explaining they are a special gift from Lord Len Leicester. The lady is nearly speechless, her face turning bright red at the mention of Len's name. She gazes at the sheer volume of blossoms, shocked that he sent every single one from the girl's stock. A flashback reveals Len at the flower stall, casually asking the shopkeeper if there's a problem with his purchase. The young girl watches in awe as Len buys everything, while her brother warns her not to be rude to the noble. Len dismisses the concern, claiming that he and the lady already know each other well. He slams down a massive bag of coins, insisting the shopkeeper take it all in exchange for bundling the flowers nicely. Len smiles as he declares he will do anything to charm and make the woman he is attracted to happy. Eris blushes deeply while clutching a massive, beautiful bouquet of flowers given to her by Len. Lily the maid catches Eris with the flowers and sternly warns her to stay away from that man. Eris finds a secret note tucked among the blossoms requesting a midnight meeting at the back of her residence. The maid stares with intense concern and suspicion as she watches her lady's reaction to the mysterious gift. Cloaked in a heavy hood, Eris stealthily creeps through the dark corridors and slips out of a creaking door. Lily suddenly intercepts her in the darkness, addressing her mistress with a firm and knowing tone. The maid demands to know where Eris is going so late at night and what she is planning to do. Grabbing Eris's hands, Lily desperately pleads with her not to meet Lensama because he is a dangerous person. Eris tries to calm the frantic maid while Lily continues to warn her that her reputation is at stake. Lily expresses her deep worry that rumors of a daughter from the Witch End family wandering at night would be ruinous. Eris surprises the maid by asking if Lily would truly think she was a bad person just because of a rumor. A gentle and determined smile crosses Eris's face as she prepares to follow her heart regardless of the risk. Eris reflects on her desire to truly understand her feelings for the man known as Len Lysetstein. Len waits by the stone wall and notes that it must have been difficult for her to slip away in this situation. Len apologizes for the secrecy, explaining that it would be problematic for them to be seen together in public. Standing beside a tall horse, Len asks if they should depart before someone spots them there. Eris panics about riding the horse, remembering that while her game character Eris was a winner, she personally has no idea how to ride. She stands frozen and trembling, desperately asking Len for instructions on how to actually mount the animal. As the horse trots along, Len tells her she should have been honest about her inability to ride since it is dangerous. Terrified and unstable, Eris tells Len not to talk to her while she focuses all her energy on just staying on the horse. A sudden gust of wind blows past Len as he catches a scent that makes him pause in surprise. Len remarks that Eris smells sweet, leading her to reveal a bundle of handmade cookies she brought as a thank you gift. Len teases her by suggesting the treats might be poisoned, causing Eris to react with indignant shock. To prove they are safe, Eris aggressively munches on a cookie while Len insists he wasn't actually doubting her. Eris pouts and continues to chew defiantly as Len watches her with a calm and curious expression. In a bold move, Len leans in and takes a bite of the cookie directly from Eris's mouth. He smiles closely at her, stating that this is the best way for him to know the treats are safe. Eris giggles and asks if it wasn't obvious that she made them herself, leaving Len momentarily stunned. Len munches on a treat and asks which store they are from, admitting they are simple but taste delicious. Eris is struck by gloom when Len remarks he has never heard of a noble woman cooking for herself. She tries to convince herself that his observation was more or less a form of praise. Eris recalls how she had to fight Lily to do the cooking herself because she wanted the gift to be personal. Len leads her deeper into the woods, promising they will arrive at their destination soon as Eris flinches at the rustling trees. They reach a clearing where nocturnal luminescent butterflies begin to fill the air with a magical glow. Len explains that these rare creatures only shine at a certain time of night deep within the forest. The forest transforms into a sea of light as hundreds of glowing butterflies flutter around them. Eris stands in awe, her hair flowing as she takes in the breathtaking sight of the luminous insects. She cries out in excitement, completely overwhelmed by the amazing beauty of the scene. When Eris asks if he brought her here for this, Len confirms he specifically wanted to show it to her. Overjoyed, Eris gives Len a brilliant smile and promises to bake more cookies for him as thanks. Len looks at her with intensity, beginning to say something meaningful before stopping himself. Eris flinches and slips in the excitement, causing a moment of sudden physical closeness. Len catches her and gently kisses her hair, treating her as if she were something incredibly delicate and precious. Eris stands frozen, her heart racing from the tenderness of Len's unexpected affection. She reflects on how he touched her that day as if he were holding something truly lovely. The memory shifts to a somber scene where a figure sits alone in the pouring rain. A heavy downpour drapes over the landscape, washing away the warmth of the previous night. The rain falls relentlessly, symbolizing a sudden and cold change in the atmosphere. Later, Eris cheerfully announces she is finished with another batch of treats. Lily finds Eris in the kitchen again and asks if Len-sama liked the previous batch of cookies. Beaming with happiness, Eris tells the maid that Len said they were absolutely delicious. Lily lets out a resigned sigh while watching her mistress bask in the joy of her blossoming romance. Eris walks through the manor grounds with a fresh gift, wondering if Len will be happy to see her again. She calls out to him, but stops when she notices blood dripping from his hand and onto his white coat. Trembling, Eris offers the sweets she made, but Len's demeanor has turned cold and harsh as he asks what she wants. Len brutally rejects her, stating flatly that he does not need her gifts as Eris stands in shocked silence. He turns his back on her completely, walking away with an air of finality that shatters the moment. Eris is left standing alone, clutching her unwanted gift as her world seems to fall apart around her. Len delivers a crushing final blow, telling her he never wants to see her again. Len sits slumped and exhausted on a plush sofa, his clothes and the floor around him stained with fresh blood. Richard offers to call for a doctor, but Len sharply warns him not to touch a fancy bag nearby, threatening his life if he does. Richard exits the room after asking how to handle the remaining survivors, leaving Len alone in the silent, ornate chamber. Len gazes intensely at his blood-covered hand, his expression a mix of grim resolve and weariness. A young woman named Eris flinches in shock as she spots a bloodied hand reaching toward a dainty ribbon pouch. Len's fist clenches tightly as he deals with the physical and emotional weight of the recent violence. The vast, blood-spattered drawing room sits in eerie stillness with Len isolated on the sofa under the glow of a chandelier. Lily approaches Eris with concern, asking what is wrong as the atmosphere grows heavy with unspoken tension. Overwhelmed by emotion, Eris buries her face into Lily's shoulder while let out a distressed cry. Blood continues to drip steadily onto the floor, marking the grim aftermath of the conflict. Outside the Grand Mansion, Eris absorbs the crushing news that both Anand-sama and Len-sama have discarded her. Eris vehemently denies the rejection, shouting that Len simply said he didn't want to meet her again while Lily looks on skeptically. Berating herself, Eris sinks into despair and calls herself an idiot for the way things have turned out. Lily expresses her blunt disappointment in Eris for giving up so easily after a single setback. Sighing, Lily questions where the spirited lady who once snapped at her has gone and calls Eris an idiot for losing faith. Eris looks up with sweat on her brow, realizing she has no other choice but to take action. Lily watches Eris with a gentle, encouraging smile, hoping to spark a change in her mistress's heart. Clasping Eris's hands, Lily declares that while she doesn't believe in Len-sama, she believes entirely in Lady Eris. Lily urges Eris to find strength by believing in the version of herself that Lily so deeply trusts. Reinvigorated, Eris realizes she cannot back down after being told off once and prepares to face Len again. Richard stands outside the mansion, sighing as he hears a sudden rustle in the nearby trees. Startled by the noise, Richard flinches and looks up toward the high balcony where a figure is moving. Richard tries to play it off as nothing and insists that the area is clear, urging others to return to the mansion. In a panic, Richard waves his hands and pushes his companion away, desperately claiming the noise was just a burglar. Richard mutters to himself about how troublesome Eris and Len can be while maintaining a nervous sweat. Len lies back on his bed in his dark chambers, finally resting his injured and bandaged body. Sudden, loud knocks at the balcony window startle Len as he looks up in confusion. Eris bangs frantically on the glass panes from the outside, determined to get Len's attention. Shocked and wide-eyed, Len stares at the window, unable to believe Eris is standing there. Len swings the window open and demands to know what she is doing, while Eris collapses inward, panting and exhausted. Striking a defiant pose, Eris declares that if he won't come to her, she will come and meet him herself. Len winces in pain, shouting that she hit him right on his injury while Eris stands her ground. Eris demands to know the real reason why he claimed he didn't want to see her anymore. Len explains that he is a worthless prince surrounded by grudges and blood, showing off his frequent wounds. He admits that he once decided not to care what anyone thought of him, yet something has changed. Covering his face in a moment of vulnerability, Len wonders why he only feels this way toward Eris. Eris pulls Len into a deep, tender embrace and begs him to let her stay by his side. She caresses him, noting that no matter how much he pushes people away, he is still a normal person who can be hurt. Eris looks at him with soft, determined eyes, fully understanding the weight of his burden. She vows that no matter what happens in the future, she will never hate him. Morning arrives at the mansion as birds chirp peacefully in the trees, signaling a new beginning. Eris presents a lavish breakfast spread of toast, eggs, and bacon with a triumphant flair. Len stares at the meal in complete bewilderment, asking what on earth she has done. Eris proudly explains that it is her special breakfast course made just for him. She mentions that Richard was the one who lent her the kitchen, leaving Len to mutter about his subordinates meddling. As Len eats, he remarks that he has never heard of a noble lady cooking breakfast for someone. Eris declares her love for Len, promising to care for him even if the rest of the world turns against him. She asserts that she doesn't care about his reputation as a notorious noble or a heinous prince. Len watches her with an unreadable expression, moved by her unwavering loyalty. Amused, Len admits it's his first time ever being called a heinous prince. With a smirk, Len decides that if she is going to be that way, he won't hold back his feelings either. Len suddenly sweeps Eris off her feet, causing her to cry out in surprise as he carries her. He loudly commands his staff to treat Eris with the utmost respect, declaring her his woman from this day forward. The surrounding servants shout in unison, acknowledging his command as the news sinks in. In a quiet, intimate moment, Len looks Eris in the eyes and tells her that he loves her. Eris is left blushing and stunned as Len continues to carry her through the mansion. Len whispers a final, possessive vow that he will never give her up to anyone else. Eris reflects on how their relationship officially shifted into what most would call dating. Lily interrupts Eris's thoughts to announce that Len-sama has already arrived to pick her up. Flustered by his speed, Eris panics about her unfinished hair and wonders how to handle his eager arrival. Confronted about her recent trouble, Eris is warned to keep her tomboyishness in check. Returning home after a grand confession, Eris reflects on the mansion she calls home. The sprawling mansion stands tall against the sky, a silent witness to the impending drama. Attempting a stealthy return via the back door, Eris is suddenly startled by a rustle in the bushes. Tension mounts as Eris realizes that her secret outing has turned into something much bigger. Frozen in the garden, Eris panics as a shadow looms and a voice calls out her name. Shocked to her core, Eris finds herself face to face with her father, the head of the Witch End family. The situation descends into chaos as the maid accidentally reveals that Eris stayed out all night. Desperate to protect her mistress, the maid begs the father to at least listen to Eris's story. In a surprising twist, the father remains calm and simply states that he isn't actually mad. Looking back with a longing gaze, the father admits he used to take Eris's mother out on similar naughty adventures. The father expresses his relief at seeing Eris acting like her true self again. Eris is stunned to learn her father already knew about Prince Len and approves of his better eyes. Offering a gentle head pat, the father affirms that he truly understands his own daughter. While Eris stares in disbelief, her father recalls warning Len he would beat him if he ever made her cry. Eris winces at the thought of her father fighting the incredibly strong Prince Len. The head of the Witch End family reflects on his deep treasure and love for his daughter. Overwhelmed with gratitude, Eris offers a silent thank you to her understanding father. Sunlight bathes the mansion as the scene shifts toward a new day and a new revelation. Eris suddenly remembers a crucial detail. Her companion Len-san is actually a prince. She questions why a prince would be known as a notorious noble despite being fourth in line for the throne. Len explains the complex royal succession, noting that the first and fifth princes are the primary heirs. He reveals his mother was a concubine and that lower-ranked princes are expected to stick to nobility. Len teases Eris for not knowing the royal hierarchy even though she was once engaged to the first prince. While Eris munches on food, Len bluntly asks if she is disappointed that he will never be king. Eris dismisses the idea of disappointment with a simple, "Why would I be?" Len points out that while he has the right to inherit, the other princes may not stay quiet. Eris distracts him from the heavy politics by excitedly showing off the scones she made. She beams with pride over the quality of today's baking as she offers him a taste. Len accepts the food with a polite thanks while Eris watches him closely. Eris realizes her knowledge is limited because she only ever played Prince Anant's route in the original game. She recalls that the fifth prince, Rizal, is a highly intelligent boy with a good reputation. Walking through town, Eris considers that if this is a game world, there must be other capture targets. Distracted by her thoughts, she accidentally bumps into someone and sends her belongings scattering. Eris is immediately struck by how incredibly cute the young boy she ran into is. Panicking, Eris apologizes profusely while the boy jokingly claims he won't die unless hit by a truck. Realizing she made a slip of the tongue about trucks, Eris tries to play it off. She offers her handkerchief to the boy to clean his dirty clothes as an apology for the collision. The boy waves goodbye to his Wani-chun as he trots away into the distance. Eris watches him go with a chuckle, thinking he was a really good and cute boy. Little does she know, she has just encountered someone very interested in the notorious noble. A heavy stomp echoes as the boy's demeanor shifts from innocent to something more sinister. Revealed as Prince Rizal, the boy wonders with a dark grin how he should play with Eris. Eris reflects on her past life as Ikawa Eri, a high school girl reincarnated into an otome game. Instead of the heroine, she became the bothersome Villainess of the story. She remembers how the notorious noble saved her from rock bottom with a confession of love. In the present, Rizal wins another game, declaring checkmate with a chilling smile. Rizal's companions are amazed by his victory over a professionally qualified teacher. The teacher is left fuming, unable to believe he was beaten again by what Rizal calls chance. Clinging to the teacher, Rizal asks what will happen to the unused storehouse now. He offers a deal, claiming he will only reveal his secrets under one specific condition. With a sharp look, Rizal challenges his opponent to win even a single time against him. Back in the present, Lily scolds Eris for going shopping alone when the town has become dangerous. Eris justifies her solo trip by noting that a royal carriage would stand out too much in the market. Suddenly, she notices a figure swaying nearby and asks if they are okay. A mysterious cloaked figure trembles in the shadows of a dark alleyway. The person staggers toward her, desperately muttering about needing medicine. Without warning, a massive fist lunges from the side, striking the cloaked figure with a heavy blow. The figure falls to the ground instantly as the violence of the encounter escalates. Terror seizes Eris as a massive silhouette looms over her, prompting a desperate scream for help. A sudden scream pierces the air as the grandeur of the academy and its clock tower looms under a vast sky. The crowd erupts in cheers and chatter as the beautiful Prince Rizzle makes his grand entrance, his cool demeanor captivating everyone in sight. While girls eagerly beg Rizzle to walk home with them, a male student nearby watches the scene with visible irritation. Suddenly, two boys aggressively interject, shouting for the girls to back off because Rizzle is going home with them today. The boys continue their loud confrontation, arguing over who has the right to walk with the prince while the girls look on in shock. Rizzle silences the bickering with a gentle smile and a wave, politely explaining that he already promised to go with his male friends. The atmosphere shifts as Rizzle prepares to offer a conciliatory deal to those he had to turn down. To make up for it, he invites everyone to his house tomorrow, mentioning that a famous pâtissier is currently staying there. The students are left in awe, noting how incredibly sophisticated and different Rizzle is compared to other boys his age. With a final tch of annoyance from his friend, Rizzle gives a reassuring pat and urges the group to finally head out. The group walks away, anticipating the fun they are about to have together. An older noble observes the scene from the shadows, mocking Rizzle for being as popular as ever. Rizzle stops to confront the man, demanding to know what he is planning while his friends continue ahead. The prince chides the man for coming all the way to his school, but the man dismissively claims he is just playing with friends. The man warns Rizzle not to sully the royal family's crest before revealing he came to offer some advice. Rizzle scoffs at the advice, firing back with a giggle about his brother who couldn't even finish off his own ex-fiancée. Enraged by the jab, the man clenches his teeth in fury as Rizzle makes a final cutting remark about the ex-fiancée's appearance. Later, a mysterious magic powder spreading through the town becomes the center of a secret investigation. A rugged man reports that the merchant and boss are elusive, while the powder itself is revealed to be a complex, professional blend of herbs and potions. The investigator explains that he finally caught a lead on the dealer while out on patrol. A sudden realization or interruption breaks the tension of the report. The man reveals he rescued a girl caught in a scuffle, while she trembles and begs not to be minded. The girl is stunned to find the man is Len's business associate, while Len warns her not to touch the suspicious evidence. The substance is identified as a malicious drug that provides a temporary feeling of omnipotence by absorbing the user's mana to cripple them. The girl fidgets in fear, questioning why anyone would distribute such a horrific thing mostly for money. The investigator adamantly defends his group, stating they would never distribute such a new and dangerous medicine in this area. The girl reflects on how Boss Len, despite being a noble who does dirty work, acts as a vital deterrent for public order. She realizes that without his presence, the entire area would have long ago fallen to gang territory. Len jokingly asks if she thinks he's a mafia boss, reminding her that he is still technically a prince. He admits his methods aren't pretty, and tells her she is praising him far too much. Len explains his philosophy of suppressing force with force, using violence, intimidation, or even bribery when necessary. However, he stares at the packets of powder, declaring that this specific scheme is clearly malicious. With a determined look, Len vows to show the perpetrators exactly what should and shouldn't be done. The scene shifts to a secluded building where a dark journey is unfolding. Rizzle meets with subordinates who report that their mission was easy peasy and exactly as instructed. They discuss the risks of distributing the expensive substance without a large supply. Rizzle smiles darkly, revealing he can manufacture the drug in minutes and that his goal isn't money at all. He mocks the stupidity of adults who think they are superior to him, promising to make them realize his true position. His first target is the notorious noble, who has been getting far too carried away lately. Rizzle concludes that he has found the perfect bait with impeccable timing for his next move. The academy bells ring out, signaling a change in the day's events. At a festive stall, a vendor cheerfully hawks magic candy, offering a discount if customers buy two. The girl from earlier beams with joy, her face lighting up at the sight of the colorful treats. She excitedly shows a cute candy to Len, asking for his opinion with a bright smile. Len looks confused and slightly out of place, wondering why he has ended up at a festival. The girl explains that alumni are welcome and she was given a ticket, so they shouldn't let it go to waste. Len finds it strange, noting that tickets were supposed to be for current students' relatives only, suggesting the rules might have changed. Seeing his hesitation, the girl sadly asks if he hates being on a date with her that much. Len quickly denies it, and she immediately cheers up, dragging him toward the crepe stand. They walk through the bustling festival stalls, surrounded by other students and visitors. Despite the fun, Len remains pensive, wondering if he is simply overthinking the strange ticket situation. The girl marvels at the delicious food, asking Len which treat he would like to try first. She lists off various toppings like chocolate and whipped cream while Len watches her with a deadpan expression. Len admits he never had a chance to eat sweets before, but now a certain someone always gives them to him. The girl reacts with a soft, knowing smile as she realizes how much their relationship has changed. She joyfully promises to make him an incredibly sweet confection the next time they meet. They share a peaceful moment enjoying the festival food, with Len admitting the experience isn't bad. A sudden movement or familiar face in the crowd catches someone's attention. The crowd passes by, momentarily obscuring a figure in the distance. The girl spots a familiar boy in the distance, realizing he must be a student at the academy. Len and Eris marvel at the vibrant festival, noting that even with only elementary and middle school clubs participating, the quality of the shops is amazing. Len explains that the school includes students from both royal and influential merchant families who learn economic basics by managing food stalls. When Eris realizes Len is a graduate of such a high-end school, he playfully claims he simply forgot the details because it has been so long. Confirming his graduation, Len admits he was a twisted brat who rarely participated in social events due to his royal status and lack of friends. Eris reacts with a bright, sparkling smile that causes Len to flinch in surprise. Finding it so cute that Len was a loner, Eris grows incredibly excited while Len asks if she was even listening to him. Len offers a gentle look as the realization sinks in that he is no longer alone. With a grand gesture, Eris promises to escort him and ensure they have enough fun today to make up for his lonely school years. She continues to tease him about being a loner, her excitement radiating as she calls his past situation so cute. Len smiles softly, fully accepting the fact that he has company for today's festivities. He stares in stunned silence, seemingly overwhelmed by her energy. Giving in to her enthusiasm, Len smiles and agrees to go along with her plan. The pair enjoys a whirlwind of activities, from fortune-telling to games, ending with Eris winning a large stuffed bear. They walk together through the festival grounds, Eris happily clutching her new prize while Len watches over her. Eris beams with joy, exclaiming how much they played as they stand before the towering school buildings. She asks if the experience was satisfying, her face filled with pure delight. After a brief separation, Eris sighs and realizes she has lost track of her companion. She concludes that Len must be lost since he is the type to keep moving once separated. Nearby, a panting Len searches frantically through the crowds, wondering where Eris could have gone. Eris glances around the quiet outskirts of the festival, noting that he is nowhere to be found. Hearing the chatter of nearby crowds, she wonders why so many people are gathered in the backyard area. Her eyes widen in awe as she discovers a massive, magnificent tree looming over the grounds. Eris stands mesmerized by the giant tree while the wind rustles through its sprawling branches. Len finally catches up to her, scolding her for wandering off alone while Eris greets him simply as Lenson. Nearby students gossip about a legend that couples who confess their love under this tree will stay together forever. Len sighs at the unrealistic story, though he acknowledges that girls seem to love those kinds of romantic tales. Eris blushes deeply, her face sparkling as she processes the romantic legend of the tree. Leaning in close, Eris asks if it sounds nice to be together forever, wondering if he ever longs for such a thing. Suddenly, Len takes her hand and solemnly swears his eternal love to her. Calling her name, Len drops to one knee and takes her hand in a formal romantic gesture. The surrounding crowd looks on in shock as the intimate moment unfolds in public. A sudden burst of applause and cheers erupts from the onlookers who witnessed the bold confession. A flustered Eris panics at the public display, while Len calmly reminds her that she was the one who said she wanted to do it. Len gently pats her head and thanks her, stating he truly had fun today because of her. Eris can only manage a weak, blushing response as she feels the weight of his hand and his words. Crowds of girls swarm Eris, excitedly asking if they are dating and congratulating her on the romantic confession. The rowdy group bombards her with questions about their meeting and her cool boyfriend while Eris tries to handle the chaos. A mysterious hand reaches out through the darkness, signaling a sudden shift in tone. In a flash of movement, Eris is suddenly grabbed and pulled away from the safety of the crowd. Len notices her absence and calls out for her, realizing too late that something is wrong. The scene shifts to a secluded, industrial-looking building numbered. Eris struggles against ropes, realized she has been bound as her captor taunts her about how hard it was to separate them. She glares at her kidnapper in shock and anger as the shadow of a familiar face looms over her. A young boy with a sinister smile greets her, mockingly calling her One-Ichan. The boy, identified as Rizzle, grabs Eris by the hair and warns her that he is about to do something horrible. A flashback shows a young boy huffing and puffing while holding a paper close to his chest. He celebrates another perfect score, desperate to show his achievement to his mother. Young Rizzle approaches a door, hoping this time his mother will finally acknowledge his hard work. From behind the door, a cold voice dismisses him entirely, stating that he's no good. The voice continues, claiming he has a weak body and is unnecessary because they already have Anon. A woman's cruel mouth is shown as she declares Rizzle is merely a reserve for the other child. Back in the present, Rizzle vents his frustrations on Eris, calling it annoying when people act high and mighty just because they are older. Eris tries to defy him, but Rizzle mockingly asks if she knows what will happen to her now. He leans in close to her face, viciously calling her a fool who is no good at all. Introducing himself as Rizzle Lichtenstein, he asks Eris if she should at least recognize her ex-fiancé's brother. Eris realizes with horror that this boy is the fifth prince Len had previously mentioned. Rizzle reveals he purposely bumped into her and gave her the festival tickets as part of a calculated plan. With a wicked grin, he confesses that he is using her as bait to lure a notorious noble out. He laughs and tells her he won't let her do as she wishes, asking if she truly understands the purpose of this festival. Rizzle darkens the mood further, confirming that everything is proceeding exactly as he intended. At the prestigious school granted autonomy and extraterritoriality, the notorious fifth prince Rizzle Lichtenstein asserts his absolute power. Surrounded by rumors of hanging with bandits, a defiant student challenges the notion that royalty is automatically forgiven for their crimes. Rizzle smugly explains the school's unique legal status while a mysterious figure reflects on the difficulty of reaching this point. The tension peaks as a character clarifies they have never committed a murder before this moment. Amidst the chaos, a calm voice urges against panic while using magic to cause mental and physical distraction. The antagonist expresses sadistic anticipation for what is to come as a victim gasps in distress. Rizzle declares that anything happening within the school is forgiven, even the potential murder of the fourth prince. The villain wonders how the notorious noble will react when his face finally twists in despair. Eris fiercely defends Len, refusing to let the scoundrel compare himself to the noble she respects. A sharp accusation is hurled at the antagonist, labeling him nothing more than a common scoundrel. Bound and helpless, Eris tries to maintain her belief while the villain mocks her for being favored by the notorious noble. In a moment of pure desperation, Eris screams for Len to save her as the situation turns dire. The villain scoffs at the idea of a rescue, but Eris remains steadfast in her conviction that Len will arrive. A massive explosion shatters the windows, catching the antagonist completely off guard. Out of the moonlight and through the wreckage, Len makes a grand, silent entrance. Eris watches in awe as her savior actually appears just as she believed he would. Len prepares to speak while looking down at the tied-up and mistreated Eris. Furious at the sight of the harm caused, Len berates the brat for crossing the line. The villainous prince laughs manically, claiming he has been preparing a special trap just for this confrontation. A massive, winged chimeric beast with a lion's head is summoned to the battlefield. The antagonist commands Len to beg for his life while boasting about the hard work put into creating this beast. Threatening to kill Eris unless Len submits, the villain gloats over his perceived tactical advantage. With a blur of motion, Len draws his blade and leaps into a high-speed aerial assault. Len descends like a falling star, his sword ready to deliver a finishing blow to the monster. In one decisive strike, Len cleaves through the massive beast as the villain watches in absolute horror. Standing tall over the defeated creature, Len coldly warns the brat never to underestimate an adult. After the dust settles, a relieved Len rushes to Eris's side to ensure she is unharmed. The defeated antagonist trembles in shock, unable to comprehend why his carefully laid plans failed so miserably. Screaming in frustration, the villain claims he is no different than Len and was simply born later. Eris looks on as the villain continues his desperate rant, insisting that they are ultimately the same. Pushed to her limit by his excuses, Eris prepares to take matters into her own hands. With a resounding crack, Eris delivers a powerful slap that leaves both the villain and Len stunned. Eris declares that while she doesn't care for the world's laws, she will always protect the person she loves. Standing her ground, Eris proclaims she isn't on the side of justice, but on the side of what she knows is right. Eris challenges the villain's morality directly, asking if he can truly justify his own actions. Having settled the score, Len gently tells Eris it is time for them to leave. A hopeful sentiment is shared that such a dangerous encounter will never have to happen again. Eris encourages Len, noting that he works hard every day to become a king worthy of his own name. The defeated prince reflects on the words he just heard, wishing he had understood them much sooner. Two other figures observe the aftermath, noting how badly the antagonist was beaten. Sitting alone in the dark, the fallen prince asks if they came just to laugh at his failure. An older brother figure reaches out a hand, offering a way home despite the crimes committed. The siblings acknowledge the impact of Len's intervention on both of their lives. Under a full moon, they walk away, admitting that their previous actions were far from cool. Back at the school, Richard is shocked to find himself the new caretaker of the strangely affectionate chimeric beast. Len hopes the creature's presence will serve as a reminder to Rizzle while he is at the royal court. Eris smiles warmly at Len, confident that things will turn out all right for everyone involved. Richard panics at his new responsibility while Len wishes him good luck with the monster. Eris confirms she is feeling better, mentioning that the medication provided by Rizzle actually worked. Eris playfully declares her determination to be a proper Villainess and a woman worthy of the notorious noble. In a tender moment of affection, Eris pulls Len close for a soft kiss on the cheek. With a radiant smile, Eris asks her, Prince, to continue protecting her, just as she always believed he would. The intense chapter concludes as the narrative shifts toward a new beginning. A new chapter title appears, signaling the start of the villainess's very first trip. A young man happily munches on food, impressed by the delicious meal Eris has prepared. Len sips tea with a stern expression, wondering why the guest is present while Eris beams with pride. The guest explains he simply wanted to say thanks, despite being in the middle of a probation period. The gravity of the prince's crime is acknowledged, leading to questions about his future intentions. Rizzle reveals his plan to join the Royal Research Institute to develop a panacea from his magic powder. Seeking a path to atonement, Rizzle vows to find his own way forward through his research. A mysterious informant warns the protagonist that a troublesome guest from the Alistair Empire, known as the Raging Dragon, is headed their way. The man clarifies that the threat is Yen Qin, the leader of the world's largest mafia based in the Empire. He reveals that a recent incident has forced him out of the succession fight, leaving the throne's future dangerously uncertain. Dismissing his own past actions as mere child's play compared to Yen Qin, he prepares to take his leave. Waving goodbye, the informant calls out a parting encouragement to Mr. Notorious Noble as he walks away. The scene shifts as the protagonist describes the Alistair Empire as a massive overseas nation home to the world's tallest mountain. He explains to a fascinated girl that the Empire is a peaceful land of spirits, dragon gods, and exotic ethnic foods. Noticing her longing expression, he playfully asks his princess if she wants to go on a date to another country. Flustered and panicking, she insists she only meant she wanted to travel since she has never left the capital. The protagonist apologizes for only taking her nearby, realizing how much he has been buried in his work. Gently, he tells her that he would be happy to go anywhere as long as they are together. The girl is stunned into silence by his sudden and sincere romantic gesture. They share a quiet, lingering moment of mutual realization and affection. Suddenly, they arrive at a beautiful, sun-drenched harbor town where the girl marvels at the breathtaking sea breeze. The protagonist watches her with a smile, glad that he could finally show her this view. A flashback reveals he impulsively left a "back soon" note on his massive pile of work, much to his aide's horror. The grand resort stands tall against the lush greenery, serving as their temporary escape from royal duties. The girl's eyes sparkle with wonder as they are welcomed into a luxurious accommodation built for foreign dignitaries. The protagonist offers her a warm smile and mentions they can even visit the private beach. Running onto the sand, she squeals in delight at the water while he warns her not to catch a cold. She excitedly shows him a pretty seashell, suggesting they dip their ankles into the water together. Bending down, he joins her search and points out more shells scattered across the beach. The girl happily gathers them as souvenirs while he continues to find more for her collection. He playfully tosses more shells toward her as she holds them out with a confused expression. She begins to wonder if he is merely treating her like a child instead of a romantic interest. As the sunset paints the sky, she worries her excitement over shells has ruined the romantic mood. In her distraction, she trips and falls face-first into the sand, feeling incredibly lame as he rushes to check on her. Blushing and hiding her face, she laments that she can't blame him for treating her like a child after such a blunder. Two strangers suddenly approach them from the trees, calling out to the girl on the beach. The men crudely ask if she wants to hang out with them, catching her completely off guard. The protagonist casts a terrifying, cold glare toward the intruders that immediately halts their advance. Terrified by his murderous aura, the men scramble away in a panic, leaving the girl confused by their sudden departure. Without a word, the protagonist grabs her hand and firmly tells her it is time to go. She struggles to keep up, frantically asking what is wrong as he leads her away with uncharacteristic intensity. The sun sets over the resort as the atmosphere between them shifts from playful to heavy and serious. Back inside, he suddenly pulls her into a tight, desperate embrace that catches her completely by surprise. He whispers into her ear that he won't wait anymore because he wants to monopolize her. He squeezes her closer, his resolve breaking as he gives in to his bottled-up feelings. In the dim light, they share an intimate and deeply passionate kiss. The girl is left breathless and blushing, her heart racing as she gazes up at him in a daze. He holds her firmly against the wall, his possessiveness on full display as he murmurs her name. The raw emotion in the room reaches a fever pitch as they both succumb to the intensity of the moment. They stand locked in an embrace, the world outside forgotten in the wake of their mutual confession. The girl's internal monologue reveals she thinks she has made the biggest blunder of her life. She reflects that if her life were a game, she would have completely broken the romance flag by now. Later, she tries to distract herself with the hotel's specialty king lobster fried with herbs. Despite the fun and good food, she realizes the day hasn't exactly ended the way she expected. She screams internally that she is an idiot for how the night progressed. The reality of staying in the same room while he takes a shower sends her into a total mental spiral. Face down on the bed, she panics and begs her friend Lily for help on what to do next. Exhausted by her own anxiety, she eventually falls fast asleep right on top of the covers. Her earlier panic about the shared room and the shower remains a frozen memory of her chaotic thoughts. The clack of the door signifies he has finished his shower, but she is already lost in a deep slumber. The chapter titled, "The Villainess and the Visitor," concludes this high-stakes romantic getaway. Back at the estate, her maid scolds her for staying the night together and failing to make a move. The girl tries to defend her trip to the beach and her seashell collection while the maid remains skeptical. She presents a gift she bought for her maid, hoping the souvenir will smooth things over. The maid tells her she will hang it in her room, but the girl insists she should just wear it. The maid shifts the conversation to a grand ball being held later that week, warning her to behave. The girl complains that the formal event will only get in the way of her actual work. Gazing at her hand, a blonde girl wonders if her choice was too childish for Lily as a maid watches her from the doorway. The maid observes closely while the girl holds up a delicate, charmed bracelet adorned with small shells. A mysterious smile plays across the girl's lips, hinting at her hidden satisfaction. Surrounded by a flurry of rose petals, the maid hurries away into a bright, ethereal void. She lets out a gasp of pure wonder as she takes in her breathtaking surroundings. The girl exclaims that the rose-filled garden is absolutely amazing while a man in a fur-collared coat stands behind her. Elio explains he is here for his dirty work, but admits he traveled this far just to stay by her side as long as possible. With a sharp, intense gaze, Elio simplifies his mysterious profession as nothing more than dirty work. Eris questions if such a beautiful garden's caretaker could truly be evil, but she is warned that royals like the second prince never reveal their true feelings. The warning grows more specific, highlighting the deceptive nature of the second prince in particular. A door creaks open as Elio leads Eris into a grand, quiet bedroom to visit someone named Len. Len sits propped up in bed, passing the time by reading a book in the soft light of the room. Closing his book with a smile, Len warmly thanks his visitors for coming to see him. Len asks who the newcomer is, prompting Eris to stare in awe at his remarkable beauty. Elio boldly introduces Eris as his woman, leaving her flustered as she politely introduces herself. Len is shocked by Elio's unexpected romantic side, jokingly glad he lived long enough to witness such a sight. The brothers discuss a serious matter, with Len noting that Elio must be in trouble if he sought him out. Elio pulls out a shimmering coin and asks Len to take a close look at the suspicious object. Len identifies the gold coin as a high-quality fake that has recently flooded the city's markets. He explains that while a single fake coin yields little, mass quantities of such elaborate forgeries are incredibly dangerous. Len reveals the chilling detail that powerful big shots are likely the ones pulling the strings behind this counterfeit scheme. Elio's expression turns dark and serious as he asks if the person behind it is Yang Chen. The two agree that this is no ordinary case, and Len promises to help Elio investigate if Yang is indeed involved. Len offers a final reassurance, promising to lend a hand whenever the time for action comes. A hand clenches tightly in the shadows, emphasizing the tension of their secret pact. Eris looks at the coin in disbelief, struggling to process that such a perfect item is a forgery. Elio quickly tells her to hide the coin, warning that even possessing it could lead to her arrest. As they walk along a fence, Eris remarks on how surprisingly close the two brothers seem to be. Elio explains that Len took care of him as a child, though Eris notes Len still calls him a bastard. Eris happily suggests they all play board games in Len's room next time to keep him company. Elio claims he has his own problems, sparking Eris's curiosity since he usually seems so composed. He reflects inwardly on how Len never shows his true feelings, leaving Elio unsure of what his brother actually thinks of him. Eris hesitates as she tries to mention how the two of them don't even hold hands when they are alone. Blushing deeply, the girl looks away, her heart racing with unspoken romantic longing. In a sudden, tender movement, Elio reaches out and firmly grasps her hand, causing her to flinch in surprise. Elio gazes at her with an intense, steady look as he brings her hand closer to his face. With a radiant, joyful smile, the girl looks up at him and declares her deep love for Len-san. Elio warmly reciprocates her feelings as they stand together overlooking a sprawling coastal city. A massive, multi-masted ship sits at the docks, prepared for a long and significant voyage. The sound of heavy movement rumbles across the docks as cargo is loaded onto the vessel. On the ship's deck, a man scoffs at the peace-loving idiots in the kingdom, doubting they can turn a profit. A calm voice interrupts, warning one Fei not to badmouth the local people. A long-haired figure stands at the center of a disciplined line of men, commanding total authority on the deck. The leader decides it is finally time to get down to their true business. Wearing elegant glasses and a sharp smile, the man notes that these idiots are actually important customers who will bring them wealth. The author concludes Volume 2 of The Villainess Falls for the Notorious Noble, thanking readers for following the new characters. Intruders crash into the room, leaving a panicked man to demand the whereabouts of his 30 guards. A mysterious long-haired figure calmly explains that he spared the napping guards the trouble of leading him there. The cornered man tries to use his status as a count to threaten his visitors, but his words are dismissed with cold indifference. With a sinister smirk, the intruder raises a finger and claims he only wishes to talk rather than fight. The cover art displays a vibrant scene of a joyous blonde girl embracing a silver-haired man amidst a field of strawberries. The intruder mockingly asks if they aren't on the same side, while the man refuses to speak to such goons. Tension spikes as the intruder reminds the man of the handsome profit he made from their counterfeit money. The threats escalate with the suggestion that people might suspect the minister's right-hand man is involved in shady business. Trembling with fear, the man warns that the kingdom of Lysedstein will react if any harm comes to him. The intruder suddenly seizes the man by the throat, declaring he is not there to bargain or ask for favors. Looming over his victim, the dark-haired man presents a terrifying ultimatum: say yes or die. Choking and desperate, the man quickly yields and agrees to talk. The intruder tells him to relax, claiming his request is not actually that extravagant. He reveals his true goal is simply to meet someone invited to the Count's upcoming ball. The mysterious figure notes that this specific person carries a very sweet scent. A carriage waits outside a grand estate under the glow of evening lights. A handsome noble with light hair steps out, looking sharp in his formal attire. He offers a hand and tells his companion to watch her step as she exits the carriage. A beautiful young woman in an elegant gown steps forward with a look of quiet determination. She tells her companion she is only attending the ball to meet the count for business purposes. A close-up shows a hand holding a small, intricate coin or emblem. The nobleman explains he doesn't go to balls often, while his companion notes they haven't been to one since they first spoke. The young lady excitedly lists the exotic food she hopes to see, prompting a skeptical look from her partner. Straightening his tie, the nobleman resolves to make the most of their night together. The duo enters the magnificent ballroom filled with high ceilings and well-dressed guests. The grandeur of the event leaves them momentarily breathless as they survey the crowd. The lady notices the food is from another kingdom and marvels at the exotic theme of the ball. The nobleman points out the dishes are from the Alistair Empire, surprised by the count's sudden interest in foreign cuisine. While she enjoys the delicious food, the nobleman remains suspicious of the count's recent change in taste. Across the room, the long-haired man from the earlier confrontation stands watching them. He approaches the pair, noting they have traveled a long way to be there. The stranger politely asks the lady how she finds the food, boasting of Alistair's traditional cuisine. He graciously invites her to eat to her heart's content, his charm brightening her mood. The lady is impressed by his gentlemanly behavior, unaware of his dangerous nature. Her companion, the fourth prince, intervenes and asks if she even knows who the man is. To her shock, the man is identified as Yang Chen. A decorative lantern glows as the scene shifts to a more private setting. Yang Chen leads them to a secluded spot where they can speak freely away from prying eyes. The lady realizes this is the person behind the counterfeit money Elliot San mentioned. The prince identifies him as the king of the underworld, leader of the massive crime syndicate known as Callus. Yang Chen mockingly asks if the prince would prefer to call him the notorious noble instead. The prince tells him to do as he likes but demands to know what business he has with them. Noting that the prince is different from the rest of the royal family, Yang Chen offers a proposal. He directly asks the prince to make an alliance with him. Yang Chen suggests that together they could easily take over the country instead of the prince cleaning up his brother's messes. The prince realizes this power grab was Yang's true motive for acting so familiar. Getting straight to the point, Yang Chen asks if the prince wishes to hold the entire kingdom in his palm. Without a moment of hesitation, the prince delivers a sharp and absolute refusal. He decides to leave immediately, signaling for his companion to follow. The prince declares there is no possibility he would ally himself with such notorious wretches. He firmly guides Eris away from the meeting. One of Yang's subordinates, Wang Fei, is outraged by the insult to his master and calls out to the prince. A hand reaches out to grab the prince's shoulder in an aggressive move. The thug shouts that they didn't come there to beg and tells the prince not to look down on them. The prince's gaze turns cold and sharp as he prepares to react. He seizes the thug's arm with incredible strength, telling him he has a lot of nerve running his mouth. With a powerful motion, the prince twists the man's arm back. He delivers a swift and brutal strike that sends the attacker reeling. The thug crashes violently into a table, completely overwhelmed by the prince's prowess. The prince commands them to get out of his sight, wanting nothing more to do with their kind. Yang Chen watches the display of power with a subtle, intrigued smile. He chuckles softly at the prince's unexpected combat ability. The atmosphere remains thick with unspoken threats. Wang Fei mockingly claims the prince fights like a little girl despite the earlier blow. Yang Chen finally intervenes, telling Wang Fei that is enough and reminding him they didn't come to fight. A sinister figure looms over the cowering girl, threatening her with countless ways to bend her to his dark will. The man stares down at the trembling woman, his cold gaze reinforcing his absolute dominance over her fate. With a chilling smirk, he warns her that she will deeply regret refusing his deal, addressing his rival as the notorious noble. A sudden movement cuts through the air as the man calls out to a woman named Eris. A long-haired figure stands in silence, their expression unreadable behind a pair of spectacles. The scene shifts to a close-up of a woman with her hair elegantly tied up, her gaze fixed intently on something out of frame. The man offers a final, sharp warning, telling his lady to remain extremely cautious in the days ahead. As the two walk away, the man casts a lingering, suspicious glance back over his shoulder. A pair of sharp, determined eyes flash with intensity, signaling a moment of sudden realization or hidden intent. Standing alone amidst a dark, floral backdrop, the mysterious long-haired figure appears as a haunting silhouette. Under a glowing full moon, the grand estate sits in total silence, masking the tension building within its walls. Inside a dimly lit room, A young woman sits quietly at her vanity, lost in thought as she prepares for the night. She slowly brushes her long hair, staring into the mirror with a heavy, contemplative silence hanging over her. The door clicks open as a man enters, informing her that he has already sent word to her family. He advises her that, for the time being, it is much safer for her to stay under his protection. Surprised by the suggestion, he pauses to ask if she would actually prefer to return home instead. He explains that their enemy is the wicked dragon of the underworld, and vows to protect her until the danger passes. The girl looks up at him with wide, startled eyes, clearly overwhelmed by the gravity of his words. A radiant smile breaks across her face, showing her complete trust and sudden relief in his presence. While she agrees happily, the man remains exasperated, questioning if she truly understands the dire nature of their situation. They discuss the mastermind Yang Sen, acknowledging him as the dangerous force behind a massive counterfeit money case. The girl admits he has a point but notes that since they are together, a confrontation was likely inevitable anyway. She jokes about having been attacked multiple times already, though the man finds no pride in such a dangerous track record. She tenderly tells him that as long as he is by her side, that is more than enough for her. A moment of quiet intimacy passes between them as they share a soft, lingering look in the moonlight. The man finally sighs in resignation, simply muttering that he understands her resolve. Just like that, the girl drifts off into a peaceful sleep, mumbling about food while the man watches over her. A flashback or side scene depicts the young lady smiling brightly alongside her loyal, freckled maid. A small figure arrives at the front of the massive mansion, dwarfed by the grand architecture of the prince's estate. Lily, the maid, arrives in a panic, gulping as she prepares to enter the imposing building to serve her lady. The young lady greets her with a cheerful shout, holding a mixing bowl and a wooden spoon. Lily stares in utter disbelief, her eyes wide as she finds her mistress in such a domestic state. The lady casually explains that she was bored and decided to make some sweets, much to Lily's shock. Lily trembles with rage, yelling that she came running because she was worried sick while her lady was just baking. The two friends share a close, familiar moment, their bond evident despite the comical frustration. The focus shifts back to the kitchen area where the preparations for the sweets continue. A refined man named Richard appears, smiling warmly as he mentions they have been expecting her arrival. Richard introduces himself as Lensama's exclusive butler, and Lily responds with an awkward, nervous bow. Richard expresses his gratitude for her presence, admitting he was worried they couldn't attend to Heiress Sama properly. The maid and the butler stand together, showcasing the difference between the royal staff and the commoner servant. The lady notices Lily's tension, remarking that she seems unusually nervous in this new environment. Lily frantically explains that as a commoner in a prince's mansion, she has every right to be on edge. She adds that knowing the mafia is involved makes the situation far more nerve-wracking than anything she's used to. A close-up of Lily shows her serious and determined face as she reflects on her duty. The young lady smiles softly, touched by her servant's unwavering loyalty despite the clear danger. Lily reaffirms her commitment, stating that she is her lady's servant after all and wouldn't be anywhere else. The scene transitions to the lush gardens surrounding the mansion, where more secrets are being discussed. The men discuss Yang Chen, noting that he has been lying low since the ball but is surely planning something. They struggle to figure out his true objective behind the large-scale creation of counterfeit coins. The man argues that if Yang just wanted money, smuggling weapons or drugs like Rizzle would be far more efficient. Overhearing the dark conversation, Lily whispers to her lady that the men have been discussing very dangerous subjects. The master instructs Richard to inform him immediately if any strange activity is heard, as they currently have no leads. The young lady suddenly runs up to Richard, calling out his name with a bright expression. She presents him with a small gift, asking him to enjoy it during his break as a token of her thanks. Richard gives a gentle, charming smile that catches everyone off guard with its effortless grace. Lily stands frozen, her heart skipping a beat as she stares at the handsome royal butler. Richard graciously accepts the gesture, his composed demeanor proving why he is considered a top-tier servant. Lily admits that Richard-san goes above and beyond his duties and possesses impeccable manners. The lady sips her tea, watching Lily's reaction with a mischievous and knowing glint in her eyes. She teases Lily, asking if she's getting interested in the butler, which causes the maid to freak out in denial. The narrator notes that Richard has served as Lensan's right-hand man for a long time and is an amazing butler. The master watches them, noting they seem to be having fun and commenting on how good of friends they are. He reveals that Richard has a rough background and that appearances can be deceiving, making him a perfect fit for the job. Turning the conversation back to the maid, he curiously asks Lily what she was like in her own past. Lily explodes in a panic, screaming that she was just very, very normal, leaving the master baffled by her outburst. A noble with fair hair calmly enjoys tea while a maid looks on, commenting that today's sweets are quite unusual. The atmosphere shifts as someone flusteredly begs to forget an embarrassing moment, telling the others to never mind while gasping for breath. The fair-haired Lensama remains composed at the tea table while the maid and a young woman in a dress observe the elegant spread. The maid with freckles and a gentle smile watches the scene with a quiet sense of duty and warmth. A feeling of relief washes over the room as the tension from earlier begins to dissipate. The young woman with long, flowing hair turns back with a questioning look, wondering if something is amiss. She calls the maid a worrywart, confessing that although she promised support, seeing the maid and Lensama together finally puts her at ease. The young woman declares that she is no longer the one who should be protecting the maid, signaling a shift in their bond. Stunned by the emotional weight of the words, the girl utters a soft name, Lily. The focus shifts to a small, delicate shoe on the floor, capturing a moment of stillness and vulnerability. The maid pulls Lily into a close, protective embrace, their silhouettes blending against a bright background. A heartfelt promise is made, reaffirming a deep-seated need for one another's presence. The maid blushes as Lily declares that she is her absolute best friend. A sudden protest erupts as someone shouts that they aren't jealous, though others tease them for getting worked up over such a thing. The mood shatters when a low rumble echoes through the area, prompting a confused question about the strange sound. The maid is frozen in terror as a massive, winged lion-like creature roars behind the bars of a cage. Complete shock takes over, her face contorting in a silent, wide-eyed scream of pure fright. The beast is introduced as the chimera Kikuin, and it is presented to its terrified, new friend. Panting with anxiety, the maid questions if she is even capable of protecting the person she cares about against such threats. The scene transitions to the quiet of night, with clouds drifting across a vast, starry sky above the manor. A solitary, dark-haired figure stands alone on a balcony, looking out over the silent grounds. The figure turns as a voice calls out, "There you are," acknowledging the presence of a newcomer. The person approaching is revealed to be a man with glasses and long hair, meeting the other figure under the moonlight. Splashes of dark liquid stain a white surface, hinting at a recent and violent encounter. More dark stains appear on a piece of clothing, emphasizing the brutal nature of the conflict that just took place. A man laughs mockingly, calling the people of the country weaklings, while another person asks him to consider the mess they have to clean up. The conversation turns to a notorious noble who was involved in a fight just a few days prior. The man is identified with a sneer as the so-called notorious noble, his expression full of disdain. He is dismissed as a spoiled brat and a prince, though it is admitted that he has improved slightly. The long-haired man asks Wang Fei if he remembers his hometown, causing a momentary pause in the conversation. Wang Fei shrugs off the question, stating all he remembers is that it was poor and wondering why it even matters. The long-haired man turns away, cryptically stating it is nothing at all while his hair billows in the wind. Wang Fei watches him with a confused and suspicious expression, sensing there is more to the statement. The dark-haired man gazes at the horizon, predicting that the people of this country will soon realize a harsh truth. A dark silhouette of a massive castle looms against the night sky as he declares it is time for their hometowns to crumble. The morning light hits the grand facade of a noble estate, but the peace is about to be shattered. A man bursts through the doors in a panic, shouting for Lensama and warning that the situation has turned dire. Lensama stands by the window, listening intently as the urgent report begins to unfold. The messenger holds out his hands, urging Lensama to take a look at what he has found. In his palms lie pieces of gold coins that are literally crumbling into dust and dirt. Lensama reacts with shock, pulling back as he realizes the magnitude of the sabotage. He realizes with horror that they have been played, as the corruption has reached even their own inner circle. The young woman nearby asks in confusion what is happening, unaware of the economic collapse unfolding. Lensama explains that Yang's objective was never to earn money, but to flood the country with magically counterfeit gold. The gold is designed to turn into dirt overnight, affecting not just the nobles but every commoner in the land. Outside the palace, a massive crowd of citizens gathers in a chaotic, buzzing protest. Enraged commoners yell for explanations, demanding to know why their life savings have turned into worthless dust. The mob grows violent, accusing the nobles of making fools of them and demanding their fortunes be restored. It is revealed the magic-infused coins were never meant for profit, but solely to trigger this mass unrest. As the commoners realize they have been tricked, the very foundations of the kingdom begin to shake. A lone figure walks through the palace halls, reflecting on the impending disaster facing the crown. The weight of the realization sets in as the rulers face a crisis that has been carefully orchestrated for years. The faces of the citizens are shadowed with anger and despair as they prepare for a confrontation. A cold voice signals the start of the chaos, declaring that the revolution has finally begun. The mastermind watches through his glasses, his eyes reflecting a calculated and ruthless intent. The setting shifts to Lysetstein Castle, where the next phase of the conflict is set to take place. An urgent message is delivered to Anand-sama, stating that the king has ordered them to move out immediately. Anand-sama argues that the king should come with them because the castle has become far too dangerous. A grim assessment is made that the ending of this story has already been decided, regardless of their actions. Lily looks off to the side with a somber expression, perhaps sensing the tragic path ahead. Chaos erupts as news breaks of an armed uprising led by the Northwest Community Development Council. The characters react with varying degrees of shock and determination as the scale of the rebellion becomes clear. Reports confirm that massive crowds have gathered to protest the counterfeit coins, escalating the violence. Len-sama narrows his eyes, identifying the leaders of the riot as the direct underlings of Yang. He barks out orders to gather all forces to calm the populace, strictly commanding his men not to lay a hand on the citizens. Len warns that if the uprisings reach the capital, the crown will lose all public trust, necessitating an immediate move to stop Yang Chen. A young woman looks on with a stunned expression as a bright light or sudden realization dawns upon her. Despair sets in as the realization hits that Yang's primary goal isn't profit, but something far more sinister. The true, terrifying scale of his ambition is revealed. He hasn't come for money, but to seize their entire country. Len prepares to depart, prompting a frantic query about his destination and intentions. Determined to reclaim what was stolen, Len declares he is going wherever the man who dared to steal Lysetstein is hiding. With cold resolve, Len announces his ultimate objective is to take Yang's head once and for all. The young woman stares in shock, her face shadowed by the weight of Len's dangerous declaration. She reflects on how Len has always protected the kingdom in his own way, even when his methods seemed harsh. Believing that this moment is no different from his past efforts, she feels a surge of conviction to act. Tears well up in her eyes as she processes the gravity of the situation and her own feelings. Clenching her hand to her chest, she prepares to voice her defiance and join the struggle. She calls out to Len, her voice cutting through the tension as he turns to look back at her. Driven by a newfound resolve, she realizes her deepest desire is to protect him just as he protected the kingdom. Declaring she is coming along, she stands firm against the shock of her maid and the silent surprise of Len. Len tries to dissuade her, citing the dangerous uproar in the capital, but she cuts him off with a fierce shout of, "I know that." With tears streaming down her face, she cries out that she simply cannot leave Len to face the danger alone. Len gazes at her, his expression softening as he listens to her heartfelt plea. Reminding him of his promise to protect her as long as she stayed by his side, she demands he honor his word. In a surprising turn, another voice chimes in, insisting on coming along to support the mission. Len is taken aback by the additional volunteer, protesting that he cannot pull others into this brewing conflict. Lily takes her lady's hands, promising to always protect her regardless of the dangers they face ahead. Exhausted by their persistence, Len finally relents with a heavy sigh and agrees to let them join. While she celebrates the victory, Len sternly commands that she must never leave his side under any circumstances. Recognizing the urgency, Len notes they must reach the castle immediately and cannot waste time preparing a carriage. With a determined look, Len claims to have the perfect solution for their transportation problem. A massive, angry crowd gathers outside the gates, their presence signaling the chaos consuming the city. The protesters scream for explanations and demand to see the cabinet minister, furious over the state of the currency. Frustrated by the lack of response from the soldiers, the mob contemplates smashing through the gates themselves. Sudden panic erupts as a voice commands the crowd to move aside, followed by a terrified shriek. A massive, winged feline monster with horns leaps over the crowd, carrying the group on its back through the air. The townspeople look up in absolute horror as the beast soars over them at incredible speed. Screams of "monster" and "witch" fill the air as the people marvel at the sight of a woman riding such a creature. It is revealed that the prince himself created this beast, leaving the onlookers questioning the wisdom of using it. The crowd scatters in a blind panic, convinced the ferocious beast is going to kill them all. Though the prince's intentions weren't helpful, the group is relieved to see the monster's presence is effectively clearing the path. The formidable gates of the inner city loom ahead, standing as the final barrier to their destination. Panic flares again as they realize the drawbridge is up, leaving them with no obvious way to cross. Placing her trust in the beast, she encourages Kikuin to take charge and handle the obstacle ahead. With a quick apology for the hurry, the group prepares for a daring move to bypass the closed bridge. The beast leaps or flies toward the fortifications as the commoners watch from below in stunned silence. Relief washes over the young woman as they successfully clear the obstacle, exclaiming that they finally made it. She excitedly urges Len and Richard to try riding Kikuin as well, her fear replaced by the thrill of their progress. Looking at the majestic castle before them, the question remains, where exactly is Yang hiding within those walls? Len reasons that Yang is most likely positioned wherever the king is currently located. Her thoughts drift to Anan, as the narrative shifts focus toward the figures waiting inside the castle. The scene transitions to a mysterious cloaked figure, Anan, standing in a daze as tension builds around him. Guards frantically urge Anan to escape through the back as intruders begin to breach the area. A massive explosion rocks the room, signaling a violent intrusion that halts all conversation. Amidst the debris, a powerful man emerges, mocking the weakness of the castle's defenses. The intruder stands tall among the rubble, questioning why the guards didn't do a better job of protecting the walls. Witnesses are paralyzed with fear, realizing the man destroyed the stone walls using nothing but his bare hands. As the smoke clears, the group confirms they are in the right place, coming face to face with the high-ranking targets. A scholarly figure with glasses offers a mockingly polite greeting to the first prince, noting the lovely weather for a revolution. The long-haired man assures the prince that he doesn't intend to kill him just yet, offering a chilling sense of security. The group finally enters the lavish, brightly lit halls of the castle, their footsteps echoing through the grand corridor. Lily is awestruck by the splendor of the interior, noting it is her very first time inside such a magnificent place. While the girls marvel at the surroundings, Len remains focused and tense, having not visited the castle for some time. The eerie silence of the empty halls triggers a bad feeling in Len, sensing that something is terribly wrong. A sinister smile spreads across a hidden face, suggesting that the group has walked right into a trap. Suddenly, the floor gives way beneath the girls, sending them plummeting into a dark void as the men watch in horror. Len screams out for Eris in desperation as the trapdoor shuts, separating the group in a flash. The scene fades into total darkness as they fall deeper into the hidden depths of the castle. Landing safely, the young woman checks on Kikuin and Lily, relieved to find that everyone survived the fall. She praises the beast for saving them once again, though they are now trapped in the dark unknown below the palace. Len, Eris, and their companions are caught in a moment of panic as someone shouts to ask if they have been hurt. Thinking quickly, the group decides it is best to push forward and urges their leader to go on ahead while they hold the line. Refusing to abandon his people, Len shouts for them to wait and stay put rather than doing something reckless. A young woman looks up with concern, calling out Len's name as the tension of their situation mounts. Amidst the chaos, she reflects on her love for the country and her deep desire to continue protecting this sparkling land alongside everyone. With a firm voice, she commands Len Lysedstein to go forth and fulfill his duty. She reaches out a hand, reminding him that moving forward is exactly what he is meant to do. She smiles brightly, addressing him as her notorious noble and beloved prince while the light of her resolve shines through. Len stands alone in a darkened space, silhouetted against a shimmering backdrop as he prepares to make his move. He clenches his fist with intense determination, the force of his grip highlighting his inner resolve. Len looks forward with a confident, gentle smile, ready to face whatever challenges lie ahead. The young woman watches him with a peaceful expression, her eyes filled with hope for their shared future. Len turns his back and walks away into the darkness, leaving only a fading shadow behind. Richard is given his final orders to look after the others as Len prepares to depart. Clad in his regal attire and a flowing white cape, Len stands poised with his hand on his sword. Back in the dim underground, a girl stands nervously and wonders aloud what their next move should be. Lily suggests they stay put and wait for Richard, noting that climbing out of their current location is impossible. Suddenly, the sound of splashing water echoes through the dark tunnel, alerting them to an approaching presence. Terrified, the two girls realize that someone is coming toward them through the passage. The story shifts to chapter, titled, The Villainess and the Underground Pathway, featuring a serene image of a girl resting among roses. Rapid splashing sounds and heavy breathing fill the air as someone sprints desperately through the water-filled corridor. Out of breath, the girl asks Lily if she is all right amidst the frantic escape. Lily responds breathlessly, confirming she is surprisingly okay despite the exhaustion of their flight. A moment of lightheartedness passes between the two as one girl looks on with a bright, curious expression. Lily remarks on how impressive it is that her companion hasn't slipped once, attributing her agility to practice playing with Kikuin. Panting heavily, they hope they have traveled far enough to lose whoever was chasing them. Another splash rings out, causing the girls to freeze in fear as they realize they are not yet safe. Realizing the danger is close, Lily urges her lady to go on first and promises to catch up shortly. She pleads with her mistress to keep moving down the path in hopes of finding an exit further ahead. Her lady reluctantly agrees and continues forward, leaving Lily behind to face the threat. Lily stands alone in the dark tunnel, watching her lady disappear into the shadows. Clasping her hands to her chest, the maid steels her nerves as she prepares to intercept their pursuer. A rough voice calls out from the darkness, demanding to know what is going on. The pursuer questions why Lily is alone and demands to know the location of the other brat. A man dressed in rugged attire emerges from the water, his expression fierce as he corners the lone maid. He mockingly addresses her lady as a shunned noblewoman and orders Lily to spit out where she went. Trembling but defiant, Lily glares back and asks what he plans to do to her mistress. The man laughs, declaring his intent to beat the girl and drag her back to the notorious noble. A close-up reveals Lily's wide, terrified eye as the man's cruel intentions become clear. He cackles maniacally, imagining the look on Len's face after he kills the lady. Startled by a sudden movement, the man pauses his boasting and looks toward Lily. Lily throws her arms wide in a desperate protective stance, blocking the path with her own body. She shouts with absolute conviction that she will not allow him to get past her. The man lunges forward, his hand reaching out to seize the brave maid. He growls that he isn't playing around and towers over her with a menacing glare. Lily recalls a past moment of clumsiness, thinking to herself that she has really done it this time. In a flashback, a maid scolds her lady for trying to cook, insisting she should leave the baking to the professionals. The lady explains that baking something yourself makes it much sweeter when a special someone calls it delicious. The maid smiles, noting just how much the lady truly treasures Len-sama. The memory shifts to a bright moment of celebration and a gift being presented. The lady stands happily, holding a beautifully decorated birthday cake she made herself. Lily is moved to tears as her lady wishes her a happy birthday and presents the heartfelt gift. The lady promises they will stay friends forever, a memory that fuels Lily's current resolve. Lily reflects on the feelings of a girl who devoted her youth to a prince only to be betrayed. She admires her mistress for being a girl who can keep smiling and moving forward despite her pain. Screaming with rage, Lily vows that she won't let anyone ruin the happiness her lady has finally found. The man grunts in pain as Lily manages a desperate counterattack amidst the splashing water. Lily is thrown to the ground, soaked and trembling as the man recovers from her strike. The man sneers that he won't hold back just because she's a woman, dismissing her peasant status. With a terrifying look of determination, Lily declares she will die before letting him touch her lady. The man laughs cruelly and prepares to strike, granting her wish for a fight to the death. He raises his fist high, ready to bring it down on the defenseless maid. Lily winces and looks away, bracing herself for the impact of the man's blow. A final image of the lady holding the birthday cake serves as a reminder of what Lily is fighting for. Lily shuts her eyes tight, the scene ending on a moment of high-stakes suspense. Len Lysetstein deflects a powerful strike from a red-haired warrior while a terrified maid watches from the shallow water. The maid recoils in shock as her pursuer reveals he was ordered to chase them down, though his heart holds a different motive. He confesses that he couldn't be happier to discover she is the maid serving under Len Lysetstein's lady. The scene shifts to a towering, majestic white castle under a cloudy sky as a scream echoes through the air. Bound and humiliated, a group of high-ranking captives, including a king, demand to know what their captor plans to do with them. The long-haired captor laughs at their impatience, telling them they still have vital roles to play in his scheme. Beneath the royal crest, he accuses the king and his son of the ultimate cruelty, deceiving their own people to line their pockets. He declares the country is rife with corruption and vows to behead the root of the rot before the public eye. The captor mocks his prisoners by calling them the stars of the show before turning to attend to other pressing matters. He clarifies that his next goal is obvious: to finally draw the curtains on a certain troublesome noble. Len Lysedstein strides forward with imposing grace, his white cape billowing as he moves through the castle courtyard. The long-haired man stands alone beneath the massive royal banner, his sword drawn and ready for the coming confrontation. The scene zooms out to emphasize the isolation of the lone swordsman waiting in the shadow of the great banner. He questions Len's presence, mocking the noble by noting his most trusted man, Wang Fei, has already gone after Len's lady. The swordsman scoffs, asking Len if he's truly comfortable being here without his bodyguard while his precious lady is in danger. Len remains unfazed, suggesting the swordsman has fundamentally misunderstood the situation. In a blurred streak of speed, a sword slashes through a massive stone pillar, shattering it instantly. The heavy stone block slides apart and crashes to the ground as the swordsman completes his devastating strike. With a cold, sharp gaze behind his glasses, he asks Len if he truly believed he would be weaker than Wang Fei. Len calmly reaches for his blade, his expression unreadable as the metal slides with a lethal sound. The swordsman asks a philosophical question, wondering what amount of gold could ever buy the things that truly matter. He recalls the cruelty of his upbringing in a penniless village where even the water they drank tasted of mud. He swears that no matter how much riches he gathers or how far he has come, his inner drive remains unchanged. His face contorts with rage as he screams that the filthy blood in his veins will never change. He declares that he is the one who truly deserves to be king, unlike the corrupt nobles who currently hold power. Len Lysedstein remains unimpressed by the outburst, simply asking if that is the extent of his opponent's resolve. Len counters by stating that a tragic past is no justification for dragging innocent people into his vendetta. A young lady calls out with authority, commanding Len Lysedstein to go forth and fulfill his mission. The focus tightens on Len's eyes as he prepares to unleash his full strength in response to the command. Len lets out a quiet, focused breath as he readies himself for the decisive clash. The two warriors engage in a high-speed sword fight, their blades creating a violent slash through the air. Len identifies himself as the notorious noble Len Lysedstein, embracing the title given to him. With a swift sush of his blade, he declares he has come to fulfill his duty as a protector. Standing tall with his sword at the ready, Len radiates an aura of overwhelming power and determination. He vows to make the corrupt pay for the crimes they have committed against his people. The image of a determined lady looms over the battlefield as Len prepares to strike. Back in the alleyway, the red-haired warrior delivers a powerful kick that Len barely manages to block. The warrior laughs, crudely stating that he is only in this for the money and nothing else. Len observes that the man doesn't seem to be fighting for any loyalty to Wang Fei. The warrior retorts with vitriol, asking what people born with silver spoons could possibly know about his life. Len stands silent in the darkness, his expression stoic as he listens to the man's resentful words. The scene flashes back to a lonely figure sitting on barrels in a dark, desolate alleyway. The warrior scoffs at the term silver spoons, clearly finding the assumption of Len's privileged life offensive. A close-up of the warrior's eyes reveals a deep-seated pain and hidden history. Len launches a sudden, explosive punch that connects with incredible force, catching the warrior off guard. Len's ally smiles confidently, stating that despite appearances, Len is even stronger than he is. The warrior grunts in pain as he is forced back by the sheer power of the blow. He snarls in defiance, yelling that there is no way he would ever lose to someone like Len. Len responds with a calm remark about the coincidence of their mutual resolve. With a sudden splash in the water, Len prepares his final move to end the skirmish. He declares he would never allow himself to lose to a man who would raise his hand against a lady. The perspective returns to the grand spires of the castle, standing silent under the shifting clouds. The sun begins to set over the fortress walls, marking the passage of time during the intense struggle. A character breathes a sigh of relief, finally having escaped their immediate predicament. A stomach growls loudly, and a companion tells Kian to wait up as they move forward. Anxious energy fills the air as the characters fidget, waiting for the next development. A loud clang of metal echoes through the courtyard, drawing the lady's attention toward the battle. Len Lysetstein is seen from behind, his cape fluttering as he faces his opponent in the distance. The lady cries out Len's name in concern as she watches the dangerous duel unfold. The sound of a blade being drawn, shing, resonates across the stone floors. The two men lock blades in a fierce struggle, the long-haired man demanding to know what makes them different. He spits out that the only thing setting Len apart is his noble blood. A tight close-up shows the intensity in the eyes of the combatants as they push against each other. Len admits that it is true he used to be very similar to his opponent in the past. The final image shows a figure slumped in the rain, haunted by a bloody and violent past. Eris rushes up a flight of stone stairs toward a bright light, her heart heavy with the realization of a lingering, but in a tender moment, Eris gently holds the male protagonist as he rests his head against her chest. With a fierce and determined expression, the man declares that his past actions occurred before he ever met her. The silver-haired man clashes his blade against a glasses-wearing opponent in a high-stakes duel defined by speed and power. The opponent with long black hair and glasses grits his teeth in frustration as he struggles to maintain his defense. From a distance, Eris runs across a vast stone courtyard toward the fight, screaming out for Len. Clasping her hands together in a desperate prayer, Eris shouts at the top of her lungs for Len to win the battle. Len's focused silhouette is shown in profile as he prepares for the final exchange of the duel. The long-haired swordsman swings his blade with lethal intent, his face twisted in a desperate snarl. Len remains composed and regal, standing his ground as the battle reaches its climax. The sun shines brightly over the arched hallways of the Grand Palace as the echoes of the fight fade. The black-haired antagonist stands defeated and stunned, his glasses reflecting the light of his failure. Len appears weary but victorious, his ornate coat slightly disheveled from the intense physical exertion. A close-up shot of heavy boots hitting the stone floor emphasizes the finality of the confrontation. A heavy thud resonates through the courtyard as the immediate threat is finally neutralized. A mysterious and brief symbol lingers in the air as the dust from the combat begins to settle. Eris cries out Len's name once more, her voice full of relief and lingering fear for his safety. Rushing to his side, Eris frantically asks Len if he is all right after the brutal encounter. A gentle hand reaches out to touch Len's dark fur collar, signifying a moment of deep emotional connection. Len looks at Eris with a soft, sweat-streaked smile and tells her that he distinctly heard her voice calling to him. Eris beams with a radiant, tearful smile and confirms her presence with a joyful, yes. As the two walk together toward the light of the exit, Eris softly acknowledges that she knows he hurt her. Len reflects on his past, admitting he once thought accumulating power was the only way to prove his worth. He confesses that his elaborate machinations have all crashed down, yet he realizes his true desire was simply prosperity. A close-up of Len's eye reveals a moment of quiet, peaceful introspection as the coup officially ends. Len acknowledges his total defeat just as Yongsan wakes up to find the uprising has completely fizzled out. The masterminds responsible for the counterfeit coin plot are finally exposed and brought to justice in the palace. Cleaning up the aftermath of the rebellion proves difficult, but Elliot San steps up to manage the restoration. With a knowing smile, Len expresses total confidence that his brother is more than capable of handling the task. Since the chaos settled down, it is noted that Lily has been acting quite differently around the palace. Eris ponders the strange atmosphere, jokingly wondering to herself if the cause could be food poisoning. The grand facade of the Noble Academy stands tall against the sky, marking a return to daily life. Inside a lavishly decorated room, a man sits alone on a sofa while reviewing important documents. Eris surprises Len with a sudden and affectionate hug from behind, catching him completely off guard. Len notes he will never get used to these sudden hugs, even though he has just finished the gold incident. Len turns to Eris and insists that the successful resolution of the recent crisis was her accomplishment as well. With profound sincerity, Len thanks Eris and tells her he couldn't be happier that she is the one he loves. Eris turns bright red, her face flushed with overwhelming emotion at his sudden and direct confession. Flustered and stuttering, Eris tries to process Len saying such romantic things directly to her face. Eris nearly faints from embarrassment, questioning if Len truly loves her that much. Len stares at her in silence, his expression unreadable as he watches her adorable reaction. The scene focuses on the intimate proximity between them as the tension and affection continue to build. Len vows that he will never stop telling her how deeply he has fallen for her. A close-up of Eris's sparkling eyes captures her sense of wonder and deep love for him. The two share a quiet, intimate moment together on the sofa, surrounded by the peace of the room. They hold each other closely, the bond between the reincarnated Villainess and her prince becoming unbreakable. Len embraces Eris tenderly, reiterating how deeply he loves every single thing about her. Eris reflects on the day they met, feeling immense gratitude that Len was the one she found in this world. She whispers his full name, Len Lysetstein, acknowledging the person who changed her destiny. Eris smiles happily, calling Len her very own prince, as they share a warm, affectionate embrace. Surrounded by blooming flowers, Eris declares her love for Len with a bright and joyful expression. Eris sits gracefully in a colorful gown, reflecting on her reincarnation as a villainess and her luck in finding an irreplaceable prince. The simple yet profound sentiment of loving everything about him lingers in the air. A vibrant close-up of pink-hued eyes symbolizes the blossoming romance and a hopeful future. In the final chapter, Eris and Len stand together among the flowers, reaffirming their mutual love. Eris apologizes for making Len wait, her face glowing with happiness as she joins him. Len responds by telling Eris she is as adorable as ever today, making her heart skip a beat. Later, Eris sits alone on her bed, lost in a daze while reflecting on the day's emotional events. She suddenly panics, hiding her face as she wonders what on earth she was doing during that bold moment. Eris frets over the fact that, in the heat of the moment, she called him Len without any honorifics. She desperately hopes he didn't hear her, though she is troubled by his lack of a reaction. Rolling around on her pillows, she wonders how he truly feels about the sudden change in her tone. Despite having just seen him the other day, Eris finds herself overwhelmed by a sense of longing. She clutches her pillow tight, admitting to herself that she misses him already. The moon hangs high over the silent castle, watching over the young lovers as the night unfolds. Eris gazes in awe at the glittering grandeur of the castle ballroom as noble guests gather for a lavish celebration. Dressed in an elegant gown, Eris lets out a breath of pure wonder at the magnificent sight before her. Standing among blooming flowers, a nervous young woman asks her companion if he is truly comfortable being her escort. Her escort reassures her with a smile, reminding her that they have already settled this matter. Fidgeting with her hands, the girl remains anxious about her role in such a high society setting. Eris blushes and smiles to herself, eagerly hoping to see Len-san among the party guests. A handsome young man in a formal military uniform stands tall, his presence commanding the room's attention. The ballroom buzzes with chatter as nobles discuss how this man recently saved them from a dangerous incident. Onlookers whisper in surprise, noting that the second prince, Elliot-sama, has not made a public appearance in years. Guests marvel at the prince's sudden popularity following his heroic actions. Amidst the sparkling chandeliers, some guests wonder if such a lavish party is appropriate given recent kingdom troubles. The nobility discusses how the crown must flaunt its power to recover from the financial crisis caused by the counterfeit gold coin scandal. A mischievous young man with a playful smirk suddenly appears, greeting the group with a casual wave. Eris is startled to see Rizal-kun, who confirms his presence with a confident grin. Rizal explains that he couldn't stay away after such a massive incident, while Eris welcomes him back warmly. Rizal modestly downplays his role in solving the crisis, claiming he only helped a tiny bit. He admits that most of the credit for resolving the situation belongs to him. A polished black boot steps firmly onto the floor, signaling the arrival of a significant figure. A tall, imposing man in a long white coat strides through the hall, his presence silencing the surrounding crowd. The crowd gasps as the notorious noble, Lysetstein, makes his grand entrance. Eris watches with a mix of intrigue and apprehension as the famous noble passes by. Gossip spreads like wildfire about how he single-handedly annihilated the crew of the evil dragon, Yang Qin. The chatter reveals that the crown prince's reputation has suffered because the royal family failed to act during the Yang Qin incident. Conversely, the reputation of those who actually stepped in to stop the threat is rising rapidly among the people. Rizal cynically remarks that the royals are simply reaping what they sowed while noting that no one has even bothered to greet him. Eris remains lost in her own happy thoughts, her mind focused entirely on Len-san. She realizes that Len-san's popularity must be skyrocketing after his recent heroics. A close-up reveals the sharp, determined profile of a man observing the social dynamics of the room. The man thinks to himself that expecting a nice little social gathering is asking for the impossible under these circumstances. An orchestra of violinists and cellists begins to play, filling the ballroom with elegant music. Couples take to the floor beneath the massive chandeliers, beginning the evening's formal dance. A gentleman approaches his lady, announcing that the time for dancing has finally arrived. Len-san stands before Eris and asks for the honor of a dance, leaving her momentarily stunned. Memories of her previous life flash through her mind, reminding her that she has only ever danced at school events. Panicking, Eris frantically waves her hands and tries to refrain from dancing today. She turns away in embarrassment, unsure of how to handle the sudden romantic attention. Suddenly, a mob of eager noblewomen surrounds Len-sama, desperately begging him for a dance. Rizal watches the spectacle with amusement, comparing the aggressive noblewomen to merchants fighting over a sale. While Eris cries out that she doesn't know how to dance, her companion encourages her to join the fray. Len-san looks over his shoulder, his expression unreadable as the crowd swarms around him. Eris stands alone in a moment of quiet reflection, her elegant gown shimmering in the light. The camera focuses on the intense, focused gaze of a man who has made his choice. With a sudden movement, Len-san brushes past the crowd of ladies to reach the person he truly wants. The disappointed noblewomen cry out in confusion as Len-sama walks away from them. Len-san politely declines the others, firmly stating that he already has a dance partner. The rejected ladies watch in stunned silence as the prince makes his way across the floor. He approaches Eris, who looks up at him with wide, surprised eyes. A close-up captures the moment of connection as their eyes lock. Eris's expression softens as she realizes the prince is choosing her above everyone else. Rizal and his companion watch from the sidelines, moved by the romantic scene unfolding before them. Len-san calls Eris by name and formally requests the honor of the dance. Blushing furiously, Eris protests that she is unable to dance properly. Len-san reassures her gently, telling her not to worry because he will guide her through every step. He takes her hand and leads her to the center of the ballroom, his movements graceful and sure. Eris looks up at him with a tender, glowing smile, her heart overflowing with affection. The grand exterior of the palace glows under the moonlight as the celebration continues inside. Later, Eris admits she was surprised by his sudden request, and Len-san offers a charming apology. With a bold smirk, he confesses that he wanted to show everyone in the room that she is his woman. Flustered, Eris denies that she was getting jealous, though her blushing face says otherwise. Len-san gazes at her intensely, declaring that she is the only one he has eyes for. The two share an intimate, passionate kiss as the world around them seems to disappear. Eris leans into him, overwhelmed by the depth of his feelings and her own. They hold each other close, the evening ending on a note of deep romantic promise. Len-san vows to love her no matter what, and Eris finally voices her love for him in return. The narrative concludes with a final, lingering look between the two lovers as their bond is sealed. A sudden gasp breaks the silence as the weight of the moment takes hold. Panicking and caught up in the heat of the emotion, a confession begins to pour out as the speaker admits to losing control. A soft chuckle follows an apology, though the recipient desperately pleads for them not to laugh at the vulnerability. Shocked by the unexpected words, Eris stares wide-eyed as she is told her actions are simply so typical of her. A vivid memory flashes back to the time she was attacked by thugs and fiercely fought them off using nothing but broken carriage parts. The praise continues, recounting how she unhesitatingly climbs trees and charges into crowds, despite being the daughter of a noble who loves to cook. With a heart-pounding intensity, he confesses that she has charged into his heart just as recklessly as she faces the world. He reassures her that everything is fine despite her unconventional and wild nature. Pulling her into a protective and tender embrace, he declares that he loves every single thing about her. Holding her close, he whispers a firm vow that he will never let Eris go. Eris is left blushing and radiant, a look of pure joy and surprise crossing her face as she processes the declaration. Breaking the romantic tension slightly, he asks if she is willing to hear a single request. He asks if she will finally call him Len today, leaving her mortified to realize he heard her private thoughts. A pair of intense eyes stare deeply, focusing on the target of his affection with unwavering focus. Completely cornered and blushing furiously, Eris realizes there is absolutely no way out of this embarrassing situation. Len watches her struggle with a calm smile, prompting her to say his name while she stammers in a state of high-alert panic. Defeated by her own shyness, she decides she is content with things as they are for now and gives up on the challenge. A sudden gasp rings out as Lily's name is called, snapping the scene back to a different reality. In the kitchen, a confused maid asks her lady if it is supposed to be that way. A panicked scream erupts as thick haze and smoke billow out from the oven. Despair sets in as she realizes she has just produced her fourth burnt cake in a row. Looking away with a blush, she reflects on why she continues to push herself so hard. A vision of the past appears, showing a meeting on a rainy day that changed everything. The narrative shifts to an interlude titled, The Maid and Her First Love, focusing on a younger Lily. The scene opens on a bustling marketplace filled with stalls and commoners going about their day. Lily walks through the town, carrying a heavy load of groceries while lost in her own thoughts. A voice calls out to her, causing her to stop and turn around in surprise. Panic sets in instantly as she finds herself face to face with Richardson, who greets her warmly. She immediately bows in a deep, formal apology, thanking him for the help he provided at the castle the other day. Richard smiles kindly and insists it was no trouble, claiming he is the one who should be thanking her instead. Checking the time, he notes that there is still a significant wait before dinner service begins. He lingers for a moment, looking thoughtful as he considers his next move. Taking a chance, he asks if Lily would mind accompanying him for a short while. A tall, grand clock tower stretches toward the sky, overlooking the entire city. Lily stands beside him, still clutching her groceries and looking slightly overwhelmed by the invitation. The view from the tower balcony reveals the vast expanse of the town nestled against the mountains. The sheer beauty of the vista takes her breath away, prompting a soft exclamation of wonder. Richard agrees that the view is beautiful, confirming his own deep affection for this specific height. He explains that he loves this spot because it allows him to see the entire town that Len-sama works so hard to protect. Turning to her with a gentle expression, he reiterates that he owes her a debt of gratitude. He acknowledges that while Len-sama is undoubtedly strong, the current peace is also thanks to Erisama. Richard confides that he believes Erisama is the person she is today specifically because of Lily's influence. As Eris rushes toward Lily to share some exciting news, Richard reflects on how fortunate the lady is. He concludes that Eris is lucky to have someone as dedicated and kind as Lily serving by her side. Modest as ever, Lily feels she hasn't done much at all and remains unsure of how to take the high praise. A warm smile spreads across her face as she offers a sincere and heartfelt thank you. Richard giggles, admitting he envies their close relationship as he can't imagine Len-sama ever shouting his name so casually. The two stand together on the balcony in a quiet moment of shared understanding and peace. Richard remarks that he had quite a lot of fun, noting it is the first time he has spoken to anyone about such personal things. He reveals that his daily conversations are almost exclusively restricted to matters of work. He finds it curious and pleasant that talking with Lily feels so incredibly calming. Lily is left blushing intensely, her heart skipping a beat at his unexpected and kind words. Stammering through her shyness, she offers to always lend an ear whenever he needs someone to talk to. Richard pauses, looking at her with a surprised and soft expression. Suddenly, he grabs her hands in a squeeze, overjoyed and asking if she really means it. He beams at her with a radiant smile, telling her he can't thank her enough and insisting it is now a promise. Lily's heart thumps loudly in her chest, her entire face turning bright red from the physical contact. Richard apologizes for keeping her so late and offers to walk her back to the residence as she wheezes in a state of romantic shock. Lily wonders if they were even allowed in the tower, but Richard clarifies it has nothing to do with the Lysetstein family. A sudden shout of, "Who's there?" echoes through the tower, signaling that they have been discovered. Richard realizes they've been caught and reacts with a playful, "Oh dear." With a grin, he tells Lily it is time for their escape. He sweeps Lily off her feet, carrying her in a dashing heroic hold as she clings to her groceries. Lily's eye reflects her total shock and the fast-moving scenery as they begin their flight. In a spectacular display of agility, Richard leaps from the high balcony with Lily in his arms. Eris is left completely stunned and wide-eyed by the reckless and bold move. They land gracefully on the stairs below, successfully evading the guards for the moment. As angry guards shout for the hooligans to wait, Richard calls back a polite, "Pardon our intrusion," while Lily yelps in fear. He looks at her with a smile and suggests that they should definitely come back here again sometime. Still dazed and blushing, Lily can only manage a soft agreement. She realizes with a start that she has fallen in love with someone truly extraordinary.